You're listening to www.wtbb.net and www.uforepair.com over
No, I have that also.
You're listening to www.wtbb.net and www.uforepair.com over
You have to be spiritual.
You're listening to www.wtbb.net and www.uforepair.com over www.worldwideradionetwork.com. Don't lose that. www.worldwideradionetwork.com.
You're listening to the Worldwide Radio Network. We're going to go over to a room that's it's under Yahoo Music. The user room that's called
You're listening to www.wtbb.net and www.uforepair.com over www.worldwideradionetwork.com. Don't lose that.
Well, I have that mouthful.
on a pair of headphones.
I can get a letter from the shredder box. You're not.
Hey, what are you doing? You're here. I know.
You're listening to www.wtbb.net and www.uforepair.com over www.worldwideradionetwork.com. Don't lose
And I'm not going to lie. You have to. Although I laugh and I act like a clown.
You're listening to LiveTalkRadio.com.
My tears are falling like rain.
Worldwide Radio Network. You're listening to www.myself.
I'm a loser, and I love someone who's near to me. I'm a loser, and I'm not
I can get a letter from
You're listening to www.wtbb.net and www.uforepair.com.
Obviously, I struggled very bad with that one. But, you know, just sick of doing the same old junk and trying to throw something in there that I haven't done.
Just say, it's hard. Say it. Just say, we're all
You're listening to LiveTalkRadio.com. Broadcast over www.worldwideradionetwork.com.
Inside myself, with the world surrounding me, wandering through the misery. But now I am free.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Thoughts On. Nice to be here, back with you all. I was just reminded today that I have not been here for 6 weeks. So I never have much relationship with time. It seems like I was here last week. And it kind of seems like I've never been here at all. You know the feeling? thought I'd start out by talking a little bit about something that I don't usually talk about. You may be happy to know. And that is that little 10 minutes that we do here before I start talking. That's sitting in silence. Which is often called meditation. I like sitting in silence. Probably, or accurately, enjoying sitting in silence. You know, God forbid you'd actually enjoy yourself as you're sitting quietly. Which is really what meditation is, just sitting in silence. And sitting in silence is one of the most overrated and underrated activities in spirituality. Depending on which school of thought you may adhere to, and I literally mean adhere, stick to, grasp hold of, as if your life depended on it. Whatever school you may adhere to, many spiritual people will either overvalue it, and then in other schools of spirituality, it's undervalued. Which isn't unusual in the world of duality. Things are always going from one extreme to the other. From this is good to this is bad to this is right to this is wrong. You need to do this. You shouldn't be doing that. That's the world of duality. There's always someone adhering to some position.
Oh, you make my world a summer day. Oh,
but
you
in just the mere act of sitting in silence,
just fade away. Nobody
sitting in silence and being
much
in silence.
Because
that's what is there to be revealed. Is that sitting in silence is not a goal. The goal of sitting is not to attain silence, that is to mistake it. There is the goal. There is just sitting in silence and recognizing yourself to be the silence. And everything else to be but a mental projection.
Can we see beyond tomorrow? Everything
we silence is one of the best meters, the best truth meters we have. Because if it doesn't exist, when you're sitting in silence, then it doesn't actually exist.
Oh, you make my world.
And if you hold up so much of what's in your mind to that standard, if it doesn't exist when I'm not thinking about it, that means it doesn't exist.
Much heaven, much harder
to hold up to such a high standard, doesn't it? Most everything crumbles. If it doesn't exist when I'm not thinking about it, then it can't be real.
As high as a
Ultimately,
mountain and
very, very little actually survives this test. At least very little that we hold to be real survives this test. And that's something that sitting in silence can actually show us. If we want to see it. If we don't see it as a goal, some activity in which I'm just trying to do it well or right or get really good at it, then we see sitting in silence is actually an opportunity to see into the true nature of things. And so it doesn't need to be overvalued or undervalued.
Like the wind through the trees,
if it's thought only as a means to an end, then it's overvalued. Because we think you must do this in order to achieve a certain end. Meditating as a means to get to a spiritual goal. Then we tend to adhere to ideas that say we must meditate a certain amount, a lot. It's sort of the highway to enlightenment. But that's to turn it into a goal. And as soon as we turn it into a goal, then it is trapped within what I call the dream state.
Why? Because my
state of
car is
which is dominated by the mind.
It's been in the closet for about...
which is created by the mind.
Oh, I don't know. Probably about 2 years, maybe. Year and a half.
The dream state is just another word for mental consciousness.
I never really, I really don't play the bass that much. I play when I record a CD. Then I'll play the bass tracks on it. But I'm more of a play guitar and sing.
The consciousness of humanity is one in which human beings believe the mental noise.
Anyway, I got nowhere to plug it in.
And so because of that, most human beings have this absolutely compulsive relationship with thought. They think compulsively. It's like an addiction. As if you would sort of cease to be if you didn't think.
That's
But it may actually be true on one level. Especially when we see that our whole idea of ourselves is just that. It's just an idea of ourselves. That, of course, ceases to be.
You wouldn't scare yourself and have you run.
But in a very simple manner of speaking, that's all awakening is.
If you have a
consciousness
change of
going from
heart,
this dream state.
you don't lose that number. You don't want to call nobody else. Send it off in a letter to yourself. You don't lose that number. It's the only one you own. You might use it if you feel better.
Compulsively
When you get home.
always moving. And so therefore we're not deriving our sense of self from it, our sense of reality from it.
I have a friend in town, he's heard your name.
So that state of consciousness that is not
Goes riding down
caught in a
slow and road.
compulsive state of mind.
We can stay inside and play games.
That
I
state
don't
of
know.
consciousness which is the inside of
Or
compulsive.
you can have a change
That's
of
the state of
heart.
awakening.
Ricky, don't
That's the state
lose
of
that
enlightenment,
number.
but it's
You don't
actually
want
just
to
a
call
state. That's why
nobody
they call it
else.
pure consciousness. It's just pure. It's just
Send it
pure
off in a
perception,
letter
pure
to
awareness.
yourself.
No compulsive.
Ricky, don't lose that number. It's the only one you own. You might use it if you feel better when you get home.
Beautiful, ugly, or safe or not safe. Everything in the dream state of consciousness is compulsively labeled.
You tell yourself you're not my kind, but you don't even know your mind. You could have a change of heart.
It's all the sort of compulsive nature thinking.
Ricky, don't lose that number. You don't want to call nobody else.
And the simplest way
Send
to
it
talk
off
about
in a
awakening
letter
is one wakes
to
up from that.
yourself.
That's what awakening is.
Ricky, don't lose that number.
And as soon as we wake up
It's
from
the
that
only one you own.
intellectual,
You might use it if you feel better
there's no truth in it. There's no
when you
truth in that
get
compulsive
home.
nature of thought. There's no truth in one's thoughts about
Ricky,
themselves,
don't
others,
lose
or the
that
world, or
number.
anything else.
Ricky, don't
It
lose
doesn't
that
mean
number.
you can't think.
That's right.
You can
Steely
still
Dan.
think. It doesn't mean the thought never comes through your brain.
Yeah,
Thought
look,
can
guys,
still
it's
come
the
through your
hospital.
brain.
I'm sure been pretty hard.
But it means that your sense of reality, of what is true, is no longer derived from the compulsive movement of thought. And then there's pure perception, pure consciousness. There's no interpretation. This is what unconditioned is. Unconditioned in a practical way, in a way that relates on a human level, just means not translating, not judging, not getting caught in the mind's matrix. Because the mind is always translating experience. And so, a pure state of consciousness is when we're perceiving from outside of that movement. Whether that movement is happening or not doesn't much matter. See, most people are so caught up in trying to get rid of thought that they don't realize that it's not that important to get rid of thought. In fact, it's just a thought that says, I need to get rid of thought, isn't it? The only thing that ever thinks that is a thought. So thought's very tricky. Thought is very cunning. Once you get onto its ploys at one level, it just kind of subverts, goes to a deeper level. You know, if going in the front door works, that's fine. If you catch on to it, then it slips in the back door. And then when you catch on to that, then it slips under the house or up the heating fence. When that doesn't work, it comes down the chimney. And all these various ways it tries to slip in it and continue to be real. And so there is this transitional phase, which is a phase I'm often talking about when I'm speaking, is this transitional phase where we actually realize through our own experience, through really looking, we actually realize that all of our thoughts are conditioned. Like we all think exactly along the lines that we are conditioned to think, right? Programmed like a computer, right? Anybody who thinks they're actually choosing of their own free will the line of thinking that they have is completely deluded by their thinking. And so when we see that all thinking is also relative, when we start to see that although you may hold one point of view, you may have one opinion, when you start to see that another point of view can be just as valid as yours, and also just as invalid as yours. But when we start to perceive the equality of all the positions the mind takes, all of them, that what we think is wrong could actually, from another point of view, be seen as right. What we think is right could, from another point of view, be seen as wrong. What we can see as useful, from another point of view, can be seen as not useful. And so it goes. All thought is sort of relative like this. And yet when we're caught in the dream of thinking, is it not true that we feel like what I'm thinking has to be more true than what they're thinking? Isn't that one of the traps of thought? Have you ever had one of those beliefs where it's just completely outside of your capacity to imagine that somebody could disagree with you? I think we've all had that, haven't we? There's sometimes where you kind of go I could kind of stretch and see that a little bit, and there's those times when it's like, what planet did you drop down from? It's just...
Go ahead.
Hell yeah, man, that was fucking awesome. Badass, man.
So, and it's actually more sad than that.
Something's off here, hold on.
Because usually what we have is not only that process happening between each other, but it's happening within ourselves. Combative, totally opposing thinking patterns in the same mind, battling for position. One wins out one day, and the other wins out the next day. So this is what most human beings are walking around in, is literally a battleground in their mind. Genocidal thought tendencies. Really, in the mind of most people, it's extraordinarily violent battlefield in there. Very conflicting. Unless a mind gets even more deluded than that and concludes, I'm right. And they may not feel divided for a while inside themselves, but then they're divided against everything and everybody else, right? So, this is the dream of mind. And I know when I talk about mind, people think I'm not also including the whole entirety of human experience. They think I'm not talking about emotion and feeling and sensation. And yet, when you start to see the nature of mind, what you start to see is about 99% of what you feel is actually based on what you're thinking. Your depression is based on your thinking, and fear is based on your thinking, your anger is based on your thinking, your blame is based based on your thinking. Your rage is based on your thinking. And also, I might say, some very positive emotions can come out of thinking too. And so when I'm speaking about the nature of thought, to me, thought and emotion are one thing, but two sides of one coin. One is the flip side of the other.
Shit.
And so the transitional phase is when we start to see that our thinking, even if one has not woken up from thought, but we start to see that my thinking holds no more inherent reality. It's not more justified than anybody else's thinking.
Well,
That's
maybe
not
most.
necessarily awakening, but it's a big step in the right direction.
Out of all the
And it really
instruments, bass seems to be the hardest one to
the-
find. Although sometimes a good keyboard player is hard to find too.
Gravitational effect of thought. Because doesn't thinking have a gravitational force? Like emotion has a
Guitar players,
gravitational
Simon
force. It
doesn't.
pulls attention.
Drummers, Simon doesn't.
It's like having something with immense gravity inside of your being, always pulling
It's a
attention in its
little bit
direction.
funny. It's feeling
And the only reason it has
inside.
gravitation
Not
is
one
because we think it is truth in
easily
it.
hide.
So it's an immense step
Don't
in and of
have
itself
much
for a human
money,
being to start to realize
boy,
that
yes,
they're thinking what they believe, their opinions,
I'd buy a
their
big
beliefs,
house
their judgments are
we both
no
could
more
live.
true than anybody else's. It doesn't
If
mean
I
that
was
anybody else's are ultimately true either,
But then again, no.
but it's an immense step to start to see that my process of thinking and therefore creating all the emotions that thinking
But
creates
it's the best I can do.
actually has
My
no
gift
more
is my
validity than
song.
anybody else's.
This one's for you. Oops.
It's an easy
And
thing
you
to
can
say.
tell everybody
Some people may go, yeah, I can understand that. It's something else when it
it may
actually
be
starts to happen
quite
within you.
simple, but
It literally starts to happen within you. And
I
you
hope
may
you
have
don't
a belief,
mind.
you may have
I
an
hope you
opinion, of
don't
course, it's a
mind
human thing.
that I
But
put
then
down
all
the
of a sudden,
word.
it also becomes part of your consciousness
How
that your belief or your
wonderful
opinion has no
for
more
your
reality than anybody else's.
sat on the roof and
Most
kicked off
human
the
beings won't allow
mall.
that to happen
All of you
because it will disorient them
that I got
tremendously.
by
Where do I stand then? Right? If I'm not standing in the fixated thought and
while I
thinking
wrote
and therefore
that
fixated emotions, where do I
it's for
stand?
people
Who am
like
I?
you that keep it turned on. So excuse me
So
for
then you start to see that our sense of who we are is
but
very
these things
intimately
I
linked
do.
with this whole compulsive nature of
See,
thought.
I've forgotten if they green, all they blue.
The reason we grasp so hard to what we
Anyway, the
think
thing
is because
what I really mean.
if we didn't, we would start to lose our sense of self.
Yours are the sweetest eyes
That
I've
makes
ever
sense.
seen.
Literally would start to lose one's sense of self. And
And
there
you
is
can
would
tell
be, in many people,
everybody
tremendous fear.
this is song.
What will happen?
It may be
If
quite
I was to
simple,
let go
but
of finding
now
reality
that
in my
it's
thinking
done,
process, what will let go?
I hope you don't mind.
Mind has
I
an
hope you don't
unconscious sense that
mind
everything
that I
can
put down
completely
the
came
word.
back. Somebody's got to know what's right around here. Right? That's what a human mind would say, and it might as well be me.
I hope you don't mind. I hope you don't mind that I put down the word.
But of course, if I've got to be right, then of course then you've got to be wrong, right? Somebody's got to be wrong. We're never going to all agree on the level of thinking, are we? We're never going to all agree. That's a dream. So it's an intermediary step, but it's an immense step for a human being.
Yeah, that ain't good to you.
To really see.
You're listening to Acoustic Guitar, located on Yahoo Chat under Music User Rooms Acoustic Guitar. Our program continues. This is the Worldwide Radio Network.com. Don't move that mouse.
How wonderful life is when you're.
And the more we cause suffering, the more we cause conflict. And the more delusional we become.
Yeah, that ain't good to you. Like, I enjoy it.
And I mean, you know, big thoughts, of course, but even little thoughts. Little thoughts. You never listen to me. It's a thought, right? And then you behave that way. And then your whole experience of someone becomes not of who they are, but all they are to you at that moment is, you don't listen to me. That's all that person is, right? You ever had someone like that? You feel like someone never listens to you, and then you decide that that's true, that's okay. You never listen, and that's all they are to you. Of course, what have you stopped doing at that moment? Listening to them, huh? So it's little teeny things. And the mind would say, no, but that's not true. It's ridiculous. Any fool would know so-and-so doesn't listen to me. Just all the evidence shows that they don't listen. Don't be stupid. Don't let go of that thought. They don't listen. All the evidence shows, everything I can prove to you that this person doesn't listen to me. There's always more than enough evidence, right? But when you really see it, there's also equal evidence that they do. And there's also equal evidence that you don't listen. And then you start to see, well, it's actually, in the truth, it all balances out, because as soon as we condemn somebody of something, we're always doing the thing that we condemn them of, aren't we? Right? I mean, if you literally look someone in the face and say, you're not listening at that moment, you're the one that's not listening at that moment, right? So we're always doing the very thing we're condemning. But the other person may be doing it too, but then we're, oh God, we're both doing it. We can't let that happen, though, right? We can't let us see that we're actually very much alike. Good Lord, if we all saw so much alike, what would we do? How am I going to realize it's all one when I realize we're all very much alike? I know that's a ridiculous thought, by the way, but it's a thought people have. So this is like easy, simple stuff. But I meet people all the time that have a thought just like that one. So-and-so never listened to me. And that so-and-so was someone from 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. And they're still caught there. That's where they are. And they feel, and when you think about that person, they feel so much rage, so much anger, or sadness, or depression, and all they're experiencing is the thought. It's all nothing more. So that's the tragedy of finding truth in our mind. And so when we sit in quiet, and just watch everything that disappears. Grasping at the moment. And you can't make yourself grasp it. The more you try, the more you do, right? So you just sit there, and there'll be these little moments. They may be like flashes, like a little flash of a light. It's just click. It just that you can't make happen, but they will happen.
Well,
Just
I
because you're
can't
paying
ever
attention.
really believe
You can be totally lost
no
in a resonant
one
flicker,
can
and you just
forgive me. Well, I feel
you'll
like
get
I'm
more
being
out.
dead. No one got
That
left
flicker
here.
between the
Well, I'm all
ethereal
alone.
peace
No one can forgive me. Well, I'm
and the
all
vast love.
alone.
You can't
No
create
one
the
got
world's
left
but you can always do
here.
it.
Fine. No
And
one
then you
got
can
left
be literally living in
here.
those worlds at your highest point.
Fine.
Nothing
No
exists in
one
this
got
moment.
left
Nothing in your lifetime is going to exist in this moment.
here. Well, I can't even breathe
Reality
when I
goes on
think.
just fine, though, right? The
No
world goes
fear
on.
just in
You're still
without you.
dreaming and you're still
Well, I feel like
everything
I'm
that's happening
being
is still
away.
happening. The world
No
is
one
falling
got
apart. Cars
left
don't come to a
here.
screeching
Well,
halt.
I'm
You know, nothing
all
changes
alone.
except you realize
No
anything
one
actually
can
that
get
you
here.
can
Well, I'm
impact.
all
And when you think you can
alone.
have it,
No
there's
one
an
got
opening.
left
The world is waiting
here.
right there.
Fine. No one got left
So it's
here.
a huge concept. It's
Fine.
really quite
No
immense.
one
It
got
answers for
left
itself. Even
here.
for years and years, I heard it. I used to see it.
No
It's
one got
amazing.
left here. No
It doesn't
one
mean that everything is zero. It doesn't mean it will never
told.
come again. It just means that once you've seen it, you know. Once you've seen that the
They're
whole
gonna trouble with
world
me.
of thinking
Oh, now
is a dream world.
I knew.
Once you've seen it,
Gonna
once you came to
trouble
agreement on
with
the
me.
state,
Oh, now I knew.
they forget
They're
it.
gonna
But even when you
terrible
forget it,
the
you
next
still.
day. I'm only
You can
from
forget as an
you.
experience. You can't forget the
They're
whole.
gonna terrible next day. I can only find you. Time. No one got left here. Time. No one got left here. Time.
Here it's
No one
to
got
find out the truth
left
about you. That's all
here.
inquiry is for. If you think that inquiry is about
No one
finding true thoughts,
told.
you miss the point of it. Then you're still in the domain of thinking. I'm inquiring, asking myself deep questions. Who am I? What is life? In order to get good thought-based answers, then it's still part of the dream state. Inquiry is actually meant to break down the gravitational pull of thought. And when it's broken down enough, awakening happens all by itself.
I'm
The waking part, you can't force
I'm the
that.
battle that rage in my head.
And even when that happens,
Sense of
many people,
madness.
probably most people,
When my
still
sanity
at times forget,
hangs
and
by
they'll actually start to find truth in their thoughts again. They may even find truth
I
about
lose
what
my
they've always known,
way,
and their
but
mind will
still you
grasp it and turn it
need
all into
to
a voice, a nice formula,
understand.
something that can be spoken to your
Now and
friends, very easily,
forever,
written in a book, and this is the truth.
I will be
Your mind turns it into thought, writes it down or thinks about it, and then says, that's it, that's the truth. See, it says right here.
sometimes I just hold you.
I have people say it all the time.
You caught up
So says
in
as if that had anything to do with anything.
I'm the king of fortune.
Or, worse than that, I'll hear somebody else
Heaven
say,
has
or
given
I just said.
to me.
You know, and that's when I really want to heave myself off a high object.
I'll try to show you each and every way I can. Now
Because
and
all of the real teachings, what they're really for is
I
not
will be
to take one thought away to replace it with a more impressive thought. or to take
Now
one
I
belief
can
away to
rest
impress
my
a better
worries
or to take one
and
theology
always
away and
be
put a better
sure
theology in its place. But to
that
actually
I
start to
won't
see
be
that it's
alone
all just the nature of the
anymore.
complexity of the
If
thinking
I'd
process.
only known you were there
And there's a
all
whole
the
worldview in
time.
there, literally. It's a whole
All the
entire
time.
This is why, like, people meditate 99 times out of 100. If you're a Christian,
Until
you have a
the
vision. Guess who
day
even have a
the
vision of?
ocean
Jesus. Very
just
something
in
Christian can't
dust
do.
to send.
If you're Jewish, guess
Now
what you're
and
gonna have? You're gonna have Moses
forever,
out of the burning bush. If you're Hindu, you know you're gonna
I
have one of the
will
Hindu gods.
be
Why is that? Well, it's easy because you are viewing what your mind is
now and
conditioned to.
forever.
That's why.
I will be.
That's why most real spiritual teachers basically say, well, there may be something that's communicated there that may be of value, but don't get hung up on it because it's not ultimately true. So even when we have visionary experiences, our visionary experiences are just like manifestations of exactly what we're conditioned to envision.
There you go.
How can I just let you walk away?
So sometimes even in
Let
the
you leave
what we call
without a
spiritual kind of
trace.
experiences
When
or
I
states,
stand here
those are often
taking
so
every
often also
breath
conditioned.
with you, you're the only one who really knew me at all. How can you just walk away
So
from
what
me
is called
when all
truth
I can do is watch you
is
leave?
not something to be
'Cause
put
we
in a
shared the
formula.
laughter and the pain, and
It's
even
not something that can
shared
be
the
attained through a
tears.
particular
And you're the
experience.
only one who really knew me
Is
at
that, for lack of a
all.
better
So
way
take a
of
look
putting
at
it,
me
that state of being, that state of consciousness,
now.
which
There's
is
just an empty space.
beyond
There's just
thought, beyond the worldview that thought creates, beyond the self that thought
there's nothing
creates.
left here to
It's just,
remind me.
and it's not beyond in the
It's a
sense of
memory
way,
of your
way,
face.
way
So take a
beyond.
look
It's
at me
beyond in the sense of
now. There's
your
just an
palm
empty
is beyond the back of your hand.
space.
It's
And
not,
if you're
there's no
coming
real
back to
distance.
me,
It's not
it's
beyond as
against
in
the odds, and that's
farther
why
away,
I
hard to
gotta
attain, a distant goal.
stay.
It's like reality is the
that
only
it?
thing that's
Yeah,
actually
that really
happening.
shot. Yeah, that's okay.
And so where this shift happens, which is all it is, it's just a shift.
And yet I find,
It's just a shift
yet
in
I
the
find
imaginary
that
thinking,
found
and my feelings and thoughts.
no one to cry to.
As that shift starts to happen for many people, God gets very concerned as it's starting to happen. It's like, oh God, I won't exist. I'll be crucified. I'll be destroyed because of what unrolls themselves only in the context of the imagination of the mind. So often people get very frightened. They feel like they're going to die or dissolve, but all it is, it's just literally just mind. It's just like the death throes of the dream states. Don't let go. He'll disappear. It will be terrible. Don't go to that place you've always wanted to go to. And so some people will contract. Oh God, I'm afraid. I'm afraid. They come to the spiritual teacher. I'm so afraid. I'm afraid that I'll just perish. And what can the spiritual teacher do? Yeah, perish. Give it a try. It's nothing more than the passing of a thought. That's all. You don't consistency, thinking it's just a passing of a thought. It's nothing. It's like a hiccup. Just hiccup and you'll be fine. No. You've got to help me get rid of the fear. But that's just dream state, right? You can never convince the dream state this is a good idea. Never. The dream state's got an infinite number of reasons, while its state of consciousness is the most important, right? What will happen to the world? What about the starving kids in Africa? Will I just sit on a couch and not care about anything? Will I disappear into a cave? What about my children? What about my husband or my wife?
The song is going to kind of...
I mean, it just goes on, and once you see through one, it just starts another one. You know? I'll die. No, I won't. Oh, well, this must be some hideous, disassociated, illusory state. I can't do that. You know, it's... The workings of illusion are the most impressive workings in all the universe. Truth is not impressive. Truth, it just is, right? It's just that state. Totally available. It is that place where there's nothing to stand on. There's nothing to grasp. There's nothing to define yourself by. You get really anxious there and start grasping as if you're falling through space and grabbing at air, and you can really disorient yourself and convince yourself there's a very big problem. There's nothing to grasp here. Who am I? What am I? What's true? What's not true? What's real? What's not real? I must find some orientation. And you can spook yourself. It's like the last gasps of the me. Or you relax. And you once realize, man, there's nowhere to stand here. There's nothing to grasp. There's really nothing to believe. Truth isn't something where I finally find what I can believe. Truth is where you finally see what I cannot believe. I am not incapable of believing. Because believing is just a rotten substitute.
After all, I'm forever in your head. And woman, hold me close to your heart. However distant won't keep us apart. After all, this is written in the
Nobody in this room right now believes that the man's Which doesn't require belief. It doesn't require you to build a whole theology around your belief that the lights are turned on. If you tried to do so, people would go, you're an idiot, the lights are on. We don't need to believe the lights are on. You need to convince us we don't know the lights are a big deal. Treat us like booths.
Inside the man.
Belief, though.
Please remember, my life is in your hands. And woman, hold me close to your heart.
Then you start repeating
However, you won't keep us apart. After all, it is written in the stars.
You're not higher than anybody else. You're not more noble. You realize the secret that everybody before you already figured out. So, as the shit starts to happen, everything starts to just
Woman,
you realize that actually
please let me explain. I never met this kind of sorrow or pain. So let me tell you again and again and again.
It's revolutionary for most people. They don't read the
I love you. Yeah, yeah.
Then you realize you wanted to
Now and forever. I love you. Yeah, yeah.
Everything is
Now and
already
forever.
expressing.
I love you.
Everything you see, everything you feel, everything comes from your
Now and forever.
your nature is that infinite. But if we were somehow to orient ourselves, this would be it's always in opposition to something or somebody, isn't it? It's never all of a sudden the perception of oneness is obliterated. You don't see it, you don't feel it. This is why power is
You've been listening to Acoustic Guitar, located on Yahoo Chat under Music, User Rooms, Acoustic Guitar. This program was made possible by the ThoughtBridgeNetwork.com family of websites, including ChatroomShow.com, AuditionSpotlight.com, and TalkLiveRadio.com. Remember, boys and girls, if you'd like to get a hold of us for any reason whatsoever, we're always interested in what's on your mind. Send an email to feedback@worldwideradionetwork.com. That email address again is feedback@worldwideradionetwork.com. You can also call our studio line at 1 area code 207-778-6400. That's 1 area code 207-778-6400. That line is available 24/7, and you can leave up to a 2-minute message. Thanks for tuning in.
It should give you a little background, probably. I used to sing in a little jazz club back in college, so I love jazz. You'll understand when you hear the poem. This one's titled, Oh, What a Lady, and it's very short. I feel the rhythm, I feel the hum, I touch the emotion, feel the warmth of the sun. When I hear her voice beckoning to me, I can almost touch the words that set my heart at ease. Oh, she's such a funny lady, so sexy and demure. But in her I find everything, in each and every chord. Copyright DM Wright, 1999. My email is Wright, WIGHT, the number 1, Babe, BABE, @yahoo.com.
This is the one and only Wolfman Jack coming to you live from the Breezy Brains Raven Room. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Imagining how life would work.
Sister King of Rock and Roll, especially baby.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready?
The infinite could actually
For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world.
And our actions.
Hey, you know what paradise is? It's a lie, a fantasy recreated by people in places that you'd like them to be. But you know what truth is? It's that little baby that you're holding, and it's that man that you fought with this morning, the same one you're going to make love to tonight. That's truth. That's love.
www.worldwideradionetwork.com.
Yes, I've had moments
This
where
is
all of a sudden
Breeze
everything was
Brands
quite
Raven.
wonderful and calm.
We're sitting in BC Ocean
But even
Breeze,
then,
my
I usually
world.
still can't
You can
imagine
find
that
it
stillness
in
and that
Yahoo
calm
in the music user rooms. I welcome
could have
everybody
energy
to my
it, could
world.
actually move.
We're presently doing a
could
recording
actually
for this room for the
inform
www.worldwideradionetwork.com.
Even the way
Anybody
you
who
talk
would like to
could
play
actually
anything,
inform
we
even
ask
the way
that
you think.
everything be introduced
That
with a
thinking
name,
can
age,
arise
location,
from
song
no
information.
thinking.
Anything that is copyrighted material
Mind can
will not
arise
be
from
used
no
on the
mind.
show.
Speech
Anything
can
that
arise from that
is
state of
karaoke,
consciousness, which
acapella,
itself is
original
not
music,
speech.
please indicate such as to what
And
you
then
are going
all
to be
these
doing.
things,
You also can indicate a
thought
stage
and
name
all-
or your Yahoo ID name.
all these
At the end of
things
each
that can
song,
be
we
used
ask
by
that
the
you give your
dream state
email
can then
address
be
and
used
to
by
spell it out. Anybody who wants a sound
the
check
state
for
of
the
truth
stuff that
outside
they
of the
have
mind.
done
Even the
can
mind can
ask
be used
and
by
we
the
will
state
play it
that's
back
outside
for
of the
you.
mind.
And if you do not wish to be featured, please indicate before you start. Enjoy. Is there anybody who wanted to do any performance? Randy, I would be honored if you would play something for us.
Is some other voice starts to exact chord with how much of the dream still. So I think it seems to me that's strange, but these moments will be exact. And very often these societies are and achievement and growth. And as long as the moments we spend in silence aren't oriented towards a good way, they can be very useful. Because that's essentially all that we're trying to
Randy, that was absolutely wonderful. Welcome everybody to my world. Is there anybody else who wanted to sing or play something?
Yeah, can I do
Now I must drive my car,
sure.
And I must know that person right there who pulled out in front of me is indeed an idiot.
I'm going to do your original piece that I wrote called Still Alive, acoustic vocal. My name
What if
Jay.
he was just someone who pulled out in front of me? I had to slam, what if I pulled out in front of me and I slammed on my brakes and we both went on?
This. Here we go.
But he's not an idiot?
No, you can't hear this.
See, the mind would equate that with being intelligent. He's an idiot. Let's go.
Been a lot of days that she said bye. Not a lot of nights that I haven't cried myself to sleep.
You know, it gets much more subtle and stuff.
I'm still alive. Got a lot of friends who call me bad. They criticize me in the life I've had to live alone. But I'm still alive. Day comes and I can't smell the rain or hear the sound of that lonesome train. I'll be better off dead, but until that day I know that I'm still alive. Yes, I'm still alive. Got the whole world right in front of me. I'm still alive. I can be anything that I want to be. I've seen my better days and I've been knocked down before. but I'm still alive.
In a state of being which is completely unproblematic.
I was raised knowing right from wrong, where in the middle, where I belong, either good or bad. I'm still alive. Grew up hard and I grew up fast. This hard time, it won't be my last. I'm still alive. The day comes and I can't smell the rain. Or hear the sound of that long train. I'll be better off dead, but until that day I know I'm still alive. It's been a long road, but I know someday a better life is gonna come my way. Till that time I'll be doing the best I can. I'm still alive. I'm still alive. Got the whole world right in front of me. I'm still alive. I can be anything that I want to be. It's got to be my better days, and I've been knocked down before. But I'm still alive. It's got to be my better days, and I've been knocked down before. But I'm still alive.
And I have the...
Thank you so much for your patience and consideration. You've been nice.
That was absolutely wonderful.
And I have that cruise
This
control.
is Breeze Brands Raven. We're sitting in BCO Breeze, My World. You can find it in Yahoo in the Music User Room. Everybody's welcome, and we welcome everybody here. This room is being recorded. Anybody who wants to sound check for the stuff that they have done can ask, and we will play it back for you. Is there anybody else here who wanted to do a performance of any kind? Okay, more than welcome to
but it's
Storm.
also a great time for animals to be present outside, so it's not too dark. And as the sun is setting, the animals come out to breeze also, so that's not a good time for you to go outside. In the middle of the desert.
No way you see inside of me. Even if the man's run out of line, into my heart, until the end of time. I need my love, my Valentine. I've been waiting and tell me how unselfishly I've been loving 1,000 times before, and I think I should love you more. I will give you my heart until the end of time. I need my love, my even if it's far with you,
is absolute peace.
You still have my heart until the end of time. All I need is you, my Valentine. All I need, my love, my Valentine.
Never even be scared because for like 30 seconds very,
that was wonderful, Storm. Welcome back, Eternal.
Thanks, Breezy. Thank you, Storm.
Randy Rhodes, would you be willing to play something again on VC here? We ask that you introduce the piece, maybe do a bit of a follow-up, and then play your song and everything, including maybe your name, your location, the song information, and everything like that. Indicate whether or not it's an original or another song. Anybody who requires a sound check, just indicate so, and we will play back what you have done and everything to be shown for what's going to be played on the radio. Anybody interested in coming up? Yes, Hungry, you are interesting. Hungry, would you be interested in playing one of your pieces? Hungry, if you're ready, please come up on DC.
How's
this
everybody
is
going?
the point at which I could make this into something.
Okay, Hungry, maybe you'd like to start us off by telling us your name, your age, where you're from, and
I just stayed with
the
sensation,
information
and
about
the
the song
adrenaline
that you
came in
intend
like
to
it's
play.
supposed to do because it can be useful.
Right.
You know, and it would course through the body, and then it kind of dissipated because there was no thought to feed it. So after a couple minutes, the body realized there's no danger, everything's fine. The
Okay, Hungry,
needed,
maybe
so
while you're getting everything ready there and whatnot, we can bring Brashini up. Brashini, before you start, maybe you'd like to give us a little bit of a follow-up with your name, your age, your location, the song information, and go ahead and start the song and singing. We're in Breeze Brand's Ravens room. This is my world. Welcome, everybody.
And later we were talking.
All right, my name's Anthony Puccini. I'm from Newport News, Virginia. I'm 39 years old, and I'm an assistant manager in a restaurant. I'm going to sing a new release by Chris Coney. It's a brand new disc. I hope you all enjoy it very much. It's called Just What I Do. And without further ado, let's make it happen.
I wasn't afraid at all. So it was the state of natural peace.
Just what I do when I can't get no loving. Just what I do when I can't get no loving. Get it!
It's just that I was observing it as I was watching. I just was so
1, 2, 3, 4. Just that Ken was a narrow man. He was always working along. Unstuck on broke his hand. The fastest you ever saw. Did it do it for the money? Was it for the fame? Find somebody ask you guess it. Why you wanna rob that train? Just what I do when I can't get no loving. Just what I do when I can't get no loving. I'm the meanest hombre you ever saw. 'Cause lately I get no love at all. It's just what I do. It's just what I do. When I'm alright, set his side high up in the air. You know we'll be working night, get in and say it again. Well, but now folks better do a message fly. God will give you. Will make you wanna spend all your time Feel the land blind with fear. And all the sin is just what I do, and I can't get no loving. Just what I do, and I can't get no loving. I'm a reason why I thought you ever saw. 'Cause lately I ain't getting no loving at all. It's just what I do. It's just what I do. Oh yeah. Something about those ladies and there was beauty in every soul. When I stood about his motivation, said I think it's about time you should know. It's just what I do and I can't get no loving. Just what I do and I can't get no loving. I'm not working the painter that you ever saw. 'Cause lately I ain't getting no loving at all. Just what I do. Oh yeah, just what I do. Just what I do. Just what I do, and I can't get no loving.
Again, that's Anthony Bristini. My email is bristini1962@yahoo.com.
Brashini, can I get you to come up and spell out your email for us, please?
B as in boy, RESCHINI
If you ever study people who've made great discoveries, all very, very often the
Next, we're going to have Jeremy Hartwell come up. He's from Charleston, West Virginia, and he's going to do a jazz instrumental on the guitar. He's 17 years of age.
They may have been thinking, and then the mind relaxes. And at that moment, they're open to an intelligence beyond thought. And that intelligence comes swooping in. So this state of pure awareness, pure consciousness, which is actually already present. The trick is you can't grasp it, can you? Because grasping is the mind. And when you see, oh, it can't be grasped, because if you want to grasp it, you have to let go of grasping it, and then you've got it. So this is our inheritance. This is really what we are, is that clear state of seeing, that clear state of being. And don't be concerned with how do I get there. And if you've been there, don't be concerned with how do I stay there, because both of those questions are the questions of the mind's domain, although they make perfectly good sense. The most important thing is the intermediary step, which is to really see, not because I say it, because the fact that I say something doesn't make it true, does it?
Platinum 4456@AOL.com. PLATINUM4456@AOL.com.
When we put truth in our thoughts, it only divides.
Okay, Hungry, we'll see you later. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Is there anybody else here who would be interested in playing? Anybody, when you come up and want to use a stage name, your Yahoo IDs are okay to use as a stage name also.
Could you imagine that?
Well, I guess while we're filling in airtime here, or waiting for somebody to come and do something, so I can sing something. This is Bruce Ransford. I'm 32 years old from Vancouver Island, BC, Canada. I'm going to be doing an acapella song of Charlene, I've Never Been to Me.
Which is what most actually are doing. They may not be doing it overtly, but underneath that state of anxiety or that fear of what might be found out, or that state, oh, I'm so unawakened, I'm so unenlightened. It's that belief that something with me is wrong.
I've no doubt you dream about the things you never do, but I wish someone had to talk to me like I want to talk to you. Ooh, I've been to Georgia and California, anywhere I could run. Took the hand of a preacher man and made love in the sun, but I ran out of places and friendly faces because I had to be
and what am I outside of that?
I've been to paradise, but I've never been to me.
Well, that's when you start to realize experience.
Lady, don't just walk away, 'cause I have this need to tell you why I'm all alone today. I can see so much of me still in your eyes. Won't you share a part of a weary heart that has lived a million lives? Oh, I've been to Nice and the Isle of Greece while I sip champagne on a yacht. I moved like Carlo in Monte Carlo and showed him what I've got. I've been undressed by kings, and I've seen some things that I want. It's take two. No, it wasn't that. Somebody PM'd me, and and for some reason it totally took it off VC. So we'll do a take two here. I've been to Nice and the Isle of Greece while I sip champagne on a yacht. I moved like Carlo in Monte Carlo and showed them what I've got. I've been undressed by kings, and I've seen some things that a woman ain't supposed to see. I've been to paradise, but I've never been to me. Hey, you know what paradise is? It's a lie, a fantasy recreated by people and places as we'd like them to be. But you know what truth is? It's that little baby that you're holding, and it's that man that you fought with this morning, the same one you're going to make love to tonight. That's truth. That's love. Sometimes I've been to crying for unborn children that might have made me complete. But I took the sweet life and never knew I'd be bitter from the sweet. I spent my life exploring the subtle whoring that comes too much to be free. Hey, baby, I've been to paradise, but I've never been
in general,
to me.
This observation that there's no one looking beyond that's an observation of realization.
Right, yeah.
So it's like
Yes. Well, the realization part, because one can observe right? You can observe. Oh, and when I look
This
inside,
Raven
there's
at
actually isn't somebody
yahoo.ca,
observing. There's just observing. And in a certain manner, then it's understood. That's
at
yahoo.ca,
not
.com,
.ca for
right?
Canada.
There's nobody. There isn't somebody who's
This is
conscious.
Brands
There's not
Raven, and
somebody
welcome
who's
to my
aware.
world. We're in the music
There's
user
just
room.
consciousness
We're
is conscious.
presently doing a
Awareness is
recording for this room for the www.worldwideradionetwork.com. Anybody who would like to play anything, we ask that everything be introduced with a name, age, location, song information. Anything that is copyrighted material will not be used on the show. Anything that is karaoke, a cappella, original music, please indicate such as to what you are going to be doing. You also can indicate a stage name or your Yahoo ID name. At the end of each song, we ask that you give your email address and to spell it out. Okay, who would like to come up next and do something?
I've got something that started out as a poem that I wrote today. I'm kind of like looking to do an acapella. I'm really kind of nervous though because I've never really sang in public before. Just bear with me. My name is Dave Beckwith, 25, living in New York right now. Bear with me here. And if I really flub up, try not to do me too hard. But let's throw this on hands-free so I can do this.
Is it the obvious?
I'll get started.
Okay, Cosmosis, before you start, turn off all your sounds. Do a couple of things by going to the start menu, then run, and then type in ping space yahoo.com. And also, don't use hands-free. If you put your cursor over top the talk button, and then use something to weigh down your space bar, like an ashtray or a rock or something like that, your talk button will stay down. Because if you use hands-free, it will not stay.
Alright, I appreciate the input, thanks. And if you would just give me a name or else to go ahead of me, that's fine.
A rock, bubblegum, duct tape. I've even heard you could use a coin to jam the space bar down. $1 bill or $5 bill works. A $1 bill won't for some reason. In Cosmosis, relax. This is no different from being in the chat room or from being in my room, sweetheart. And you can do wonderful. I'm proud of you.
Okay, here goes. The title of the piece is Points to Ponder on the Rocky Road. But here goes. On this rocky road of unforetold,
and it's not like we then get,
we know not
you
if
find
the hand
another worldview within the same dream state that holds the validity. That's what most people do, right? Like that's kind of what the whole, not the whole, I don't want to offend the whole movement, but that's what happened to us in the 60s. There was this tremendous, a wonderful thing,
humans tend to make
old structures.
It's okay, don't you fret.
Right?
We can't reverse the hands of time, nor bring back innocence.
It's not really true.
We have to go with what we have and draw from experience. So when we're old and close to death, there's something we should ponder. What lies beyond the other side will we rest, or will we wander? Remember how you live your life. You may decide your fate.
But then what happened
and
is it just tended to settle for
how we reincarnate.
Another fixated
Cosmosis Brave at yahoo.com.
Then it just kind of all goes. It's not unlike the kid in high school that goes, I'm not going to be like everybody else. I'm not going to listen to pop music and dress like them.
Is there anybody else who would like to come up and play? Anybody who does come up, we ask that you turn off all sounds to begin with. Also go and do a couple of things under the start menu. Go to run. Type in ping space yahoo.com. After you do your pieces, we ask that you give your contact email and spell it out for us. Prashini, if you'd like to come up and do another piece, we would be honored to hear you.
Thank you very much, Bruce. My name is Anthony Brischini. I'm from Newport News, Virginia. I'm going to sing the karaoke disc from Uncle Cracker called Follow Me.
If that's it means something on a much broader scale. Right? It means, then what does it mean?
Don't know how you met me, you don't know why. You can't turn around and say goodbye. All you know is when I'm with you, I make it free. I swim through your veins like a fish in the sea. I'm singing, follow me, everything is alright. I'll be the one to tuck you in at night. And if you wanna leave, I can guarantee you won't find nobody else like me. I'm not worried about the ring you wear, 'cause as long as no one knows it, nobody can care. You're feeling guilty, I'm well aware. If you don't look the changing, baby, I'm not scared. I'm singing, follow me, everything is alright. I'll be the one to tuck you in at night. And if you wanna leave, I can guarantee you won't find nobody else like me. I'm singing, follow me, and you will see. We'll take a private trip to West Sea. I hope you're in my arms and you sweet to fly. We'll make love all through the night. Won't give you money, I can't give you the sky. It's better off if you don't ask why. I'm not the reason that you go astray. We'll be alright if you don't ask me to stay. I'll be the one to tuck you in at night. And if you wanna leave, I can guarantee you won't find nobody else like me. You don't know how you met me, you know why. You can't turn around and say goodbye. All you know is when I'm with you, I make you free. I swim through the veins like a fish in the sea. I'm singing, follow me, everything is alright. I'll be the one to tuck you in at night. And if you wanna leave, I can guarantee you won't find nobody else like me. I'm singing, follow me, everything is alright. I'll be the one to tuck you in at night. And if you wanna leave, I can guarantee you won't find nobody else like me. I'm singing, follow me, everything is alright. I'll be the one to tuck you in at night. And if you wanna leave, I can guarantee you won't find nobody else like me.
Yes,
That's right. My email address is
Brischini1962
at yahoo.com. B as in boy, RESCHINI 1962 at yahoo.com.
But it's different.
This is Bruce Jones' Raven's Room, and welcome to my world. You can find our room under the music user room. We welcome all talents, and everybody enjoy.
The last element.
Next, we have Rachel Collins coming up. She's 25 from Knoxville, Indiana.
Is realizing what
she is going to be singing Dream of Me from the movie Get Over It, and she will be singing a cappella. Rachel, please come up and
that's the element of
entertain
surrender,
us.
of realizing, like, I've done what I can do, and it doesn't mean, like, I've done what I can do, therefore I go to sleep. It's like, I've done what I can do, but you stay awake to that state in which you've done what you can do. You remain conscious of it. Because it's a very it's an extraordinary open state, isn't it? I've done everything I can. There's nothing more, nothing more.
The thought comes by, and then it's just, I'm not thinking it, just a thought comes by.
There's nothing more you can do.
Nothing more, but like a
let me
the wind comes by.
You've never been able to do anything about any of it.
It's initially disconcerting.
So I can see the face
Because it is a little disconcerting, isn't it? Wow. I haven't really done all those things I think I've done.
Can bring me this.
And see, that observation, even that understanding, it's a wonderful understanding, but it also has its own dangers to it, because the mind can even take an understanding like that and grasp it. It happens all the time in spiritual life, right? And then it's like, I'm not doing anything, there's nobody to do it, but it becomes fixed. It becomes something that now the mind has used as a new strategy, instead of being in that state of amazement, which is actually extraordinarily intimate. Yeah, it's very intimate. It's sort of insecure, but in the most positive sense of the word, it's insecure. Right? It's like then you're always leaning into the moment. It's not an observation that one grabs hold of, because as soon as we grab hold of it, it's no longer really true for us. And so the surrender part is actually probably the most important part. Yeah.
And maybe my dreams.
Yes, because you can't tell someone here's how to surrender. You know what I mean? You just can't. You can't do that with anything. You can't. There's no like ABC to surrender. Someone actually gets there spontaneously.
Thank you.
In their own time.
That was Rachel Collins.
It's all okay.
Her email address is blueicangel192 at yahoo.com.
Timing, there's no
it's
such thing as, BLUE_ICE_ANGEL192 at yahoo.com. Thank you, Rachel.
Just a correction from what I'm seeing, that's blueicangel92 at yahoo.com, not 192. Correct me if I'm wrong, Storm.
No, it's blueicangel92 at yahoo.com. Thank you. You're listening to Breeze Brand's Raven Room. This is my world over the worldwide radionetwork.com. Welcome to everybody.
The only word you offered really was
okay, here we go. Try this again.
So,
hello, everyone. My name is Brian Hardy. I'm about to play the song Red Eyes
I can't tell you how I did that. And something did change after that when I got home. And I reflected back on the thinking after these bodily happenings and how it created even more fear. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, getting the testing is fine and that needs to be done. But I can see how it went from those in the absolutely. And I knew that what Reagan's suggestion was totally true because I could recognize it after that. There was just this little shift, and it pretty much has gone away. It's kind of gone, whatever it was, came around. So, in that relaxation, that's the whole point. Because people ask me all the time, so why do you go on these retreats? So this is really the question, because I've been going a couple of years, I love them. I couldn't really answer the question. Just didn't have an answer, but now it's starting to change a little bit. So in the silence, allows that resting place where it was easy for me to do it with the body, but not so much with the mind, because the mind does go to the chimney and it does go to the basement. And it becomes more subtle, it grabs in more subtle ways. And in some ways, there's definitely more than the teeth that I had in the beginning.
That's the funny thing is sometimes the subtler ways the mind grabs are actually more pervasive. Totally. It's just for me, but I can see the effects of that subtlety grabbing every aspect of life. So the whole point to this gap, sitting in silence, is to allow the opportunity of that rest to come in through and clear all through. Because that's the only thing that really clears it out. Understanding something doesn't matter. Understand it. Yeah, and you really never would know. that's the more one can really totally relax with what is, and what is has a way of, in one sense, correcting itself. You know, that's the nature of what is.
It's so strange is even recognizing that these are just big teeth they still, that adrenaline can still.
It can have a lifespan. Right? There are momentum even when you see through something. That it's no longer being fueled. Even just imagine that someone's particular old pattern is it wasn't being fueled at all. It may still have a certain momentum. Right? Just like if you're driving the car and you take your foot off the accelerator, it doesn't mean that it's stretching out. Some things are other things are just a certain momentum. But once you know, once there's a deep knowing that that's how it is, it's just momentum. And the mind isn't making a problem out of things anymore. Then the momentum has a relatively short lifespan. Any momentum has a relatively very short lifespan unless it continues to get fueled on some level.
That's Jedi_524 at yahoo.com.
Sure. Okay.
Jedi, that was
Sure,
absolutely wonderful.
Then you can't do anything.
You're listening to Greek Brand's Raven Room.
Right?
This is my world.
It's just like, I mean,
We're broadcasting over the www.worldwideradionetwork.com. Thank you for coming and listening. Next, we have Ultimate, who would like to play something.
Sensing if it's necessary to have more, or sensing the body without the mind understanding it all, and the body senses if it's okay just to turn off that mechanism. And yes, it has a momentum. It doesn't clear immediately, but then relatively quickly it starts to. The body reharmonizes itself because the body is always orienting itself to what we see as real. If we see something as real that's not, the body orients itself to that. So if we see something, if we've interpreted something as threatening, then the body will orient itself around that. And say, okay, I can feel if it's threatening. I'll experience that. But as you see through your experience, say something's not threatening, it's really not a problem. The body orients itself to that.
It was probably easier for me to see it through the other two star reason if I had it. It was easy because it was so clean and pretty clear. But the mind has these little fingers that go off in all these different directions. A little trickier.
Yeah.
A lot trickier. But at the same time, it's not even a concept. It's sort of the same thing. It happens with it.
It's the same thing. It's the same energy, but it goes in the mind, and then energy turns into thought. Right. Here the energy turns into emotion. Correct. Here it turns into thought. It's the exact same process. You see, and then you start to realize that, that's the energy of thought. And then that's just a lot to say. And when even if you look at thought, you realize even the things that thought says are really scary, if you really looked at them and you didn't recoil from them, if you don't recoil, it's like, that wouldn't actually necessarily be worse than anything else happening.
It's totally true.
If you recoil from it, then it's like,
That's true, because I've gone through several things that would have been thinking devastating a year or so ago, and there's just not quite the energy on it.
Yeah.
Not even easy, it just didn't matter what really hurt too much.
That's the thing, yeah. When you can actually, like, even though it's just a thought or a threatening thought, but when you can actually see, even if that happened, when there's no resistance to the thought, actually then that happening is no better or worse than anything else happening.
I'm looking forward to this retreat in a couple weeks. Thank you.
Enjoy yourself. It's really what retreat is for. It's actually if you enter it and the system just opens. And then what naturally happens, As you hear me say, retreat all the time, and out of retreat. it's not the question. We never have to ask ourselves what I need to do to awake. If we ask ourselves anything, the much more useful question is, how is it that I unawaken myself? If spiritual awakening, if enlightenment is as natural as getting up in the morning when I've had enough sleep, well, how is it that I keep avoiding it? That's a much more interesting question than it is true. We
Okay, my email is ultimateexodus. That's U1TIM 4T3 underscore 3X0 D0US at
when I was young,
Yahoo
very close to both of my grandparents. And one of my grandparents on my father's side, you'd never know it by looking at me.
Wonderful,
but,
Ultimate. That was absolutely wonderful.
There is some
Do
Native
we have
American
anyone else
Indian
here who would like to perform?
In fact, just a couple generations ago, one of our ancestors was the head of the Cherokee tribe. And my father, unlike my grandfather, unlike me, was beautiful, jet black hair, dark skin.
Your lips move, but I cannot hear what you're saying.
And we go to his little house,
Amy
my grandmother, quite often, because they lived quite close. And when we'd go in and we'd sit down, we were young.
But it was gone.
And,
I can't put my finger on it now. The child is grown. The dream is gone.
And then he would do this thing that we thought was just Grandpa being funny. He would start to move around the living room, you know.
Okay, so I forgot part of the song. Who cares?
And he would just, and we thought.
Hey, was there anybody else who wanted to perform before we close out?
He did a lot of funny things.
Music,
and we'd
were
just
you
be
up for it?
entertained by it, you know. Sit back.
Hello?
And then,
how's it going, Breeze? I mean,
how's it going at 5:34 a.m. my time?
yeah, if she's on the same island as we are, I bet it's the same time, isn't it?
She actually.
I'm doing well. I'm having lots and lots of fun here.
Oh, you sound like it's just a barrel of cherries,
when
man.
they were talking
Hey,
about that, and she said,
anybody want to hear an original?
that wasn't
Yeah, we always want to hear
Grandpa
it.
just playing around.
And I have to ask you,
He was actually doing
I'm
a
surprised you're still here.
traditional
How are you
Indian
able to still be online? Everything's
time
cool?
you came over.
No, I'm living
thought
off
I
of
was
borrowed
so
time. Every second is a blessing.
And the thing that
Don't know
touched
when, don't know
was
how, but
that he
it's
let
going
us
to happen.
believe
And when it does,
that it
I
was
probably
just
won't see
be a
everybody
silly
for
old
about
man.
3-4 months.
When really for him, he was doing this very sacred.
Okay, finishing up. We have
profound
music time
gesture.
coming up.
And somehow,
even
though I didn't realize what he was doing for many years, it had, I think,
My name's
real
Music Trend. I'm from
blessings.
BC, Canada.
Have a real impact.
This is an original song I wrote. Hooking in with WWW, Worldwide Radio Network. This is copyrighted. It's called Free My Soul.
Thank you.
Now, Joe, I've heard you say, you've said this actually to me several times in conversation, that you travel all over, you teach all kinds of people in different situations, and every so often, a handful of people
no longer there.
And so I would like you to unpack that statement and tell our friends here, let's see, are they really interested in awakening? Are they? Could it be that there are hundreds of people in the room that actually are? And this is where you have to change your statistics that you've been sharing with me? What would it mean? What would it mean if that were the case? What would they have to be coming here with? What type of orientation?
It's a big question. It's a big thing. Everybody's on their own journey. Their journey is very, very significant. Whatever
divine awakening in different ways, different contexts. And I think that for most of us, we need an evolution
r.gold@sh8w.ca.
what's real about oneself, what's really real, what's really true amongst the hundreds of veils that we could get lost in, just in our own self, in our own being. This sort of amalgam of a composite self, which is really what self is. It's a composite of myself. What's really true, what's really real. And I think getting to the point where that becomes something that we're heartfully, really, actually interested in, really interested in, is for most, it's a journey. We may start out having the sense that that's what we want, some of us don't. Our journeys all start wherever they start. But it's rare that we really start there, because most all of us, we have many other different human agendas. And I say that in the positive sense, in other words, things within us that really need to be addressed, that really need to be encountered, that really need to be recovered, that really need to be unwrapped, that we need to open up to and realize that there's many transformational moments along the way. And I think as we get more and more sort of opened up, more cleared from this sort of division, this competing self-images have with us, at some point we really get to a very authentic sense of like, really. And I don't want to know because of the benefit that it'll have to me, although they have a choice. But I want to know because it's somehow intrinsic to our very existence. That's how I see it. I think this curiosity, this yearning, it's absolutely intrinsic to existence itself. In fact, the way I experience it is that whatever our spiritual channels, whatever we're striving towards or aspiring towards, is actually at the core of it. It is existence seeking to know itself, seeking to realize itself, seeking to experience and become awake to all of itself. And what we would say is our personal journey is part of that. It's being fueled by something that actually belongs to existence as well. So when I make a statement like that, when I say, often it's rare, not rare necessarily, but
thank you. That I score 524.
A little bit unusual to encounter somebody who's right there, right on that.
Hey, why don't you play another song?
Should I do this one more time?
Yes, that's fine, especially seeing how I never got to hear it.
Far enough in their own
friggin' yeah, hell.
Of transformation.
Windows 90 friggin' 8.
Actually, I'm damn sure. But they let me come back on. I hate it when that happens because my heart skips the beat on its wondering, is this the last time? And all I kept thinking was, I never got to close. I didn't do nothing.
They can ask it in a way that's
I'm sure going to miss you a lot, DJ. I just want to say that.
Thank you.
So you're very welcome.
You're listening to Bruce Brown Raven Room. This is my world.
So, having said
over
that,
the
I think it's really important to emphasize
worldwideradionetwork.com. And now, we shall listen to the sultry sounds of music trend.
That we come to, and like I said when I
Yeah, this is
started, I
music
think
trend from BC, Canada.
wherever we
I'm
are,
going to play an original for you.
and
called
however
Free My Soul.
existence is
And that
seeking
was smart, and I
itself through
copyrighted
us
it.
and in us and as us is absolutely legitimate. That is the most important thing to us. As I ask people often, talking to friends, I ask them, the first thing you need to come to clarity about is what your spirituality is for you. Not what I say and think about is about what a teacher says or the Christian or Jewish or whatever, or any teacher. But to me, there's something intrinsic about each of our spiritualities. The way that it is seeking its full expression in each of us. That when I started teaching, 16 years ago or so, I just, would throw a question. I thought it was a rather casual question, like, so what are you here for? What's it all about for you?
I give up.
And what I found to my surprise is that
No, you don't.
That's right.
people that have been into spirituality, often for decades, 20, 30, even 40 years, even 50 years, sometimes when I would ask the question, kind of put them on the spot.
I do remember earlier today
Because when they would
someone
say, like,
saying,
oh, I just want to be
I
enlightened.
owe you $1 million for getting me the lyrics to that song. And I believe that now is the time when I'm going to cash in, so you got to play.
I played.
So you want to keep that at a cut then?
Because they were so used to everybody else defining it for them. Like
okay, well, either you have the choice of either redoing it or we put on the other track.
Just hold on.
Yeah. So let's say somebody answers that question in a different way.
Blowing on
Their answer isn't, I want to know what's
Does
true.
he need about 10 minutes or so?
You described, I think, as the core kind of driving force for you.
That's how it appeared for me.
Yeah, I'm music fan from BC, Canada, Vancouver Island.
But let's say, let's just take the average Joe who says something like, I'd like to be happy. I'd like to be loving and loved. Like, that's really what I'm interested in. That's what I'm, if you ask me why I'm on the spiritual journey, that's what it's about.
Then I would say, by all means, follow it through. But follow it all the way through. Play it all the way. Commit yourself to it. If it's about you, if it taps into your vitality center, what's really vital. Because if there's not what it should be, it should be what it is.
So you've met people in all of your different teaching environments who are genuinely coming forward with a motivation for their spiritual journey that might be different than asking this question. You want to know the truth, who you think are in the process of awakening,
Oh, sure, you never know what the universe is going to do. Or you could have one agenda and months to go, Well, I want to show you this.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about this, this, we haven't really defined awakening, but you've given us a clue going off the cliff. Andrea wrote a book with Sounds True called The End of Your World. Do we really want to call it that? How many people I'm buying the book, The End of My World.
I thought the same thing, actually.
Yeah, I know. We let you roll with it anyway.
You did.
So tell me what you mean a little bit when you use this
R.GOLD
language going off a cliff.
SHAW.
Oh, gosh.
That was absolutely fabulous music. This now concludes our evening in the Bruce Brands Raven Room. I'd like to thank you all for listening to us over to www.worldwideradionetwork.com. Please look for us on the main page under Show Archives, which says the Bruce Brands Raven Room, My World. This is your Bruce bidding you good evening and many sweet dreams. Look for us again into the Music User Room and come back into my world.
To me,
this Bruce Brands Raven at yahoo.ca, BREEZE, BRANSRAVEN. at yahoo.ca, not .com, .ca for Canada. Thank you.
Good night, Paul.
I have a question for you here. I have somebody who's going to go register, and but they don't want to do the audition part, but he's got CDs to send to you. Where does he send them to?
Prone to call it a moment of clarity.
Theory of the universe.
Because
Okay, here it is.
It's a great word, but it's
God. God is
sometimes it can
He became
imply that
consciousness unto himself. And he
once
knew
awakening or a moment
He was
of
lonely,
clarity
he was
happens,
bored.
it's
So
really
he created
about
one son.
fundamental shift in
Okay,
our
but the one son was lonely and
That's
bored
not-
too. So he
That's what
created another.
distinguishes it from
The first one was
variety of
Jesus, the
spiritual
second one was
experiences we can
Satan.
have,
And
we
Satan
come
was
back
jealous
from, and
because
we may be
Jesus was God's
transformed,
favorite.
but it's
And he wanted to be the favorite. So he said, screw y'all, I'm going to create my own existence and destroy y'all, and I will be number one. So,
it's not
Earth,
necessarily
the universe,
the
people,
self that we thought we were was
they were all
transformed.
created
Is the
by
self that we thought
God
we were is
to give
realized to
Jesus
not
and
comprise
Satan something
the very
to play
least
with.
the fullness
We are nothing but a game.
of what
The
we
one that wins
To me,
the
that's
most
that's
wins
the distinction, and
the
that's
game.
also
But the problem
just-
is, God created Jesus and
that's just the
Satan.
beginning.
Even if Satan wins,
things
he
there.
loses.
First, what's
And he's
your
out of the picture.
experience
Why
now
is
of
it
identity?
when she loses?
quote unquote identity?
Because God
What's your
created
experience?
him.
My experience now is that
Okay.
the question, and I
Do you
don't mean this
understand?
personally to you,
Even
fine.
if
We're
he
friends. But the
wins
question- you can say
everything,
anything.
he's
that
still
the question
lost.
isn't
Because God can still
relevant to my
destroy him.
experience. In other words, you ever have those experiences where somebody asks you
And if
something,
Jesus wins, which is
and
the
it's
embodiment
just
of
like
love,
it
because he
just
didn't
doesn't
fight. He knew
make sense anymore,
that God
it's not
loved
relevant.
him. Okay?
Like I'm saying, blah, blah,
And
blah,
Satan,
blah, blah,
he
like
didn't
that?
see it, he didn't feel it.
Kind of.
You know?
Yeah.
So
kind
if
of like
Jesus
that, but
wins,
not really. It's
you
kind
know,
of like,
everything of
you
the
know,
devil
the question
is dead,
doesn't arise
gone,
here.
destroyed,
That
cast into the
Sure.
pit of
So I don't-
darkness
I'm
and
not
hell
asking
or
for
whatever the hell you want to
that.
call it.
But
Okay? And
this is
heaven
what I found really
is
interesting
for
about,
all the people that
about
got on God's side.
the shift
You
of
know?
identity. Is
That's the way I see it. It's a
part of it
game
often
of,
is we go
I want to
from,
be
of
the
course, more
best
limited,
of
restricted,
loved by God.
defined
I want to
type
be the
of
number
defined
one.
sense of who we
You know,
are.
that's what it comes down to in
we have shifts
my
of
eyes.
identity,
It's just a
that
theory.
identity
You know,
becomes
I could be wrong. Highly doubtful,
broader,
but I could be wrong.
more universal. And of course, on personal
Okay.
levels,
Statement of the universe in under 3
spacious
minutes.
because it's not so
And your rebuttals out there.
It
Send
gets
your
broader.
rebuttal
The
to
interesting thing is
rebuttal
it gets broader.
at
It also gets emptier, right? Because that's
hellhaven.com.
the emptiness is the lack of boundaries.
Hello.
Which is, I think,
Hello. Anybody left in here?
Yeah.
We got booters, huh?
It's not like an empty
Cool.
box.
Messages for Sherry. Watch out for the booters.
Hey, I have a question. Why is it that every time somebody might get on the mic, you guys automatically think it's a booter?
I don't think that's actually true. I think it comes from experience. There was a couple people in here that PM'd me that said they were booters in here. And I think it's because they got booted.
Well, then how come you guys couldn't read when it says unboot? You know, I unloaded my booter, and automatically you guys thought I loaded a booter up. Come on, guys, for real.
Hey, listen, I go by what I read, and it looked like it was loaded up, not unloaded. So I don't think there was really too much to say about it. You know, when you unload a program or load a program and it's not clear, I think probably people assume the worst. I've noticed there's a lot of booting around.
I think you would know if I had my booter loaded. I only boot people who are assholes to me.
Like, oh,
Well, that's
no
nice.
identity. Now, of course, that doesn't mean if
Well,
someone calls
how do you
it,
define an asshole?
Well, you're starting to be one, so kind of like you.
No, I say judge and jury. Have you ever noticed that the judgment that you lay on other people is actually about yourself? Thoughts never leave their source, you know.
Yeah, okay.
Well, no, not okay. You might want to think about it, you know. Might make you happier.
Yeah, okay. By the way, everything you guys say in here is being recorded, so you guys want to watch out for that. So.
Oh, yeah, it does say that when you come in. It says recording, doesn't it?
No way.
Yeah, I think it's part of the room listing, actually. Fancy that. Welcome back, Heartless. Be careful of the booters in here. You need to be in Java. Yeah, welcome to the room, Sneaky Dog Lulu. We suggest you be in Java. There seems to be a couple of booters in this room right now. Yeah, I think it's out of control. The booting goes. Sneaky Dog, we are recording for the Worldwide Radio Network. So, if you've got anything to say or perform, go for it. And if you'd like to have it archived, if it's any good at all, all you need is an audition spotlight, username, and password, which you can pick up by clicking at on the link at the top of the room. Since we already know your audio is good, make sure you run a ping first. Come up to the microphone after I say, you're listening to auditionspotlight.com. And then introduce yourself to the audience any way you wish, but basically get the basic information, your stage name or your name, however you want people to know you as, your age, location, and what you're going to perform. Then go ahead into your performance. At the end, get your contact information, like an email address or whatever you prefer. Okay, so here we go. You're listening to www.auditionspotlight.com. Come on up to the mic and introduce yourself to the folks out there in our listener land. You're listening to auditionspotlight.com. Don't move that now.
Hi, my name is Jason. I'm from Georgia. I'm going to be doing a very simple song on the guitar that most people know. Let Her Cry.
It's not that. It's not that. It's not that. And this is a whole transcendent thing. I'm not a body. I'm not a mind. All that stuff. Very transcendent. This is what we crave, especially when we have or sorrow or suffering. We just want to get it right. And a lot of people enter spirituality with the hope that I can just transcend this. And the nice thing is that if you see why, you can transcend it. You can kind of make up for it, realize it doesn't define you. And you can get way right back. Only tell me when you think Mr. Misty's nothing with but at some point, the other part of this, the other part, I say that I don't care, I just put my hand unless you do it all care, and I pray to God you gotta help me fly away. Is one is let her cry. The other is almost coming back. Let us baby and healings and invitation all the pain. Let her. Even if I can transcend it and have a type of freedom because of that. Let her breathe. It's the let her breathe. Of as an adolescent kind of freedom that I certainly sought. I think most people do, which is it is a freedom defined by what I'm free of. I'm free of, I don't feel this way, or I'm free of that, or I'm in this situation and I don't react that way, and, I'm free. And a lot of, us in spirituality, we may even want to just be free of the whole human dimension, period. Do you know what I mean? So I'll kind of be here, but, like wink, wink, but not really. But there's a whole other dimension to it, which I think it's a whole different experience of freedom. One is defined by what I'm free from. That's a very transcendental movement. And the other one, which I think is a much more mature, spiritually mature experience and definition of freedom, is what am I free to? Am I free enough to enter back here into time and space? Am I free enough? Yes, eternal, however you want to define that, the infinite, unborn Buddha nature. And as that, am I free enough? Have I discovered enough intrinsic freedom to be that, now experiencing itself as this?
You're listening to www.wtbv.net and www.uforepairs.com over www.worldwideradionetwork.com. Don't move that mouse.
www.bridgeradio.com.
You're listening to www.wtbv.net and www.uforepairs.com over www.worldwideradionetwork.com.
What is this thing?
Don't move that much.
To catch a moment on the wing while flying through the sands of time. The words of belief, a trick of the mind.
Ladies and gentlemen, for your entertainment and your gratification and his insightful insights to the cosmic understanding of reality, this is Onward, and welcome to the stage, one and only, the one and only, Joel T. Bridges.
You're listening at www.wtbv.net and www.uforepairs.com over www.worldwideradionetwork.com. Don't move that mouse.
Background. My favorite image of this journey, and I think it's depicted very, very well, is in the Christian story. Jesus' journey. Jesus' journey is not a transcendent
You're listening
journey.
at
Jesus kind of starts from transcendent journey
www.wtbv.net and
This is an incarnation.
www.uforepairs.com over
www.worldwideradionetwork.com. One person, so we don't have to be bothered with it ourselves. But I think a lot of what's the actual minutia in that story and the way that
What is
and I don't
this
mean
thing?
that it either is or isn't true. I just
To
mean it has
catch a moment
mythological,
on the wing
archetypal
while
components.
flying through the
You're
sands of
listening to
time.
www.wtbv.net and www.uforepairs.com over www.worldwideradionetwork.com.
Whatever that means, you know, whatever that means to actually be, the willingness to actually incarnate, the action to allow existence to live whatever life it commands of you. And the nice thing about that other sort of movement of freedom, it does take a certain courage, because at that point, the nice thing is, all of a sudden your spiritual life shifts. All of a sudden it's not about how free am I? Am I free from this? Am I free from that? Am I, it's not so much, it totally shifts, and it doesn't become about how am I relating to everything. That sort of drops away. It's really nice to even stop referring back to how am I relating to this? How am I feeling about this? Am I being confined? Am I being restricted? Do I still feel free? To have all that drop, and to be courageous enough to be here also. And from what I've seen, to have that transcendent aspect of eternity be a part of one's experience, it's a big part of what allows you to actually be here. Because then you know experientially, you know in the deepest place within you that everything is unimaginably okay. No matter what happens to you, no matter what you go through, you know in a way that can't be moved that everything is unimaginably okay. And we can either try to hide in that,
everything's okay and that's all I want to experience. Or that becomes the ground from which we live life. If everything's unimaginably okay, if my realization of eternity has shown me that in the end I can't be harmed, in the relative I can, but in the end I can't be harmed, then what am I holding back from? You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. Why am I always checking to make sure I feel really good or really free or whatever? It's like then life can play a different agenda.
I'm relaxing as you're talking. Jesus. Oh, yeah, that's the point. I do. I feel unimaginably okay as I'm listening to you. So much better.
And I think it's also part of that journey is it's humbling. I mean, it's not so humbling to be transcendent. I'm beyond it all. It doesn't affect me. I'm not my body and my mind and personality, and it doesn't have to lead to inflation. It can, but it's not inherently particularly humbling. The other part of the journey, it's humbling because it's the journey of inclusion, and it's also finally brings together these. Even those words are ridiculous. Brings together. Nothing's ever apart except our idea of them. Do you know what I mean? But in a way of speaking, it finally brings life back together as what it always really was.
You're listening to LiveTalkRadio.com, being broadcast over www.worldwideradionetwork.com. Dumbass. You haven't heard of the Shell CA?
Well, I have my mouth full.
I can get a letter from the Shriners Hospital floor. You're back. Ready? Hello.
Hey, how you doing? You're here. I've never seen someone here.
They don't know, I betcha. All they know is to put the thing up on your screen.
Want a dot? 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 Want a dot?
You have to be a spiritualist as well, you know.
Nope. Blow it out your ass! Ass!
You're listening to LiveTalkRadio.com, being broadcast over www.worldwideradionetwork.com.
It always really was eternal. And it always really was walking down the sidewalk. You know what I mean? And it always really was just having your breakfast. And it always really was realizing what a profound event that something that simple could be. It doesn't have to lead to inflation. It can. But it's not inherently particularly humbling. The other part of the journey, it's humbling because it's the journey of inclusion. Shown me that in the end I can't be harmed, in the relative I can, that transcendent aspect of eternity be a part of one's experience. It's a big part of what allows you to actually be here. All of a sudden it's not about how free am I. Am I free from this? Am I free from that? Am I, it's not so much, it totally shifts, and it doesn't become about how am I relating to everything. It resonates so deeply with is that it is a journey of inclusion. It is a journey of somebody willing to be. From a guy with a Buddhist background, my favorite image of this journey, and I think it's depicted very, very well, is in the Christian story. Jesus' journey. Jesus' journey is not a transcendent journey. Jesus kind of starts where the transcendent journey ends. This is an incarnational journey, God appearing as man, And we projected that onto just one person so we don't have to be bothered with it ourselves. But I think a lot of what's the actual minutia in that story and the way that that myth, and I don't mean that it either is or isn't true, I just mean that it has mythological, archetypal components in it, that what that, to me, that journey, what it resonates so deeply with is that it is a journey of inclusion. It is a journey of somebody willing to be whatever that means. You know, whatever that means to actually be, the willingness to actually incarnate, the action to allow existence to live whatever life it commands of you. And the nice thing about that other sort of movement of freedom, it does take a certain courage, because at that point, the nice thing is, all of a sudden your spiritual life shifts. And all of a sudden it's not about how free am I? Am I free from this? Am I free from that? Am I, it's not so much, it totally shifts, and it doesn't become about how am I relating to everything. That sort of drops away. It's really nice to even stop referring back to how am I relating to this? How am I feeling about this? Am I being confined? Am I being restricted? Do I still feel free? To have all that drop, and to be courageous enough to be here also. And when I sing to have that transcendent aspect of eternity be a part of one's experience, it's a big part of what allows you to actually be here. Because then you know, experientially, you know in the deepest place within you that everything is unimaginably okay. No matter what happens to you, no matter what you go through, you know in a way that can't be moved that everything is unimaginably okay. And we can either try to hide in that, everything's okay and that's all I want to experience, or that becomes the ground from which we live life. If everything's unimaginably okay, if my realization of eternity has shown me that in the end I can't be harmed, in the relative I can, but in the end I can't be harmed, then what am I holding back from? You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. Why am I always checking to make sure I feel really good or really free or whatever? It's like then life can play a different agenda.
I'm relaxing as you're talking. Jesus. Oh, yeah, that's the point. I do. I feel unimaginably okay as I'm listening to you. It's so much better.
And I think it's also part of that journey is it's humbling. I mean, it's not so humbling to be transcended. I'm beyond it all. It doesn't affect me. I'm not my body and my mind and personality, and it doesn't have to lead to inflation. It can, but it's not inherently particularly humbling. The other part of the journey, it's humbling because it's the journey of inclusion, and it's also finally brings together these. Even those words are ridiculous. Brings together. Nothing's ever apart except our idea of them. Do you know what I mean? But in a way of speaking, it finally brings life back together as what it always really was. You know, it always really was eternal. And it always really was walking down the sidewalk. You know what I mean? And it always really was just having your breakfast. And it always really was realizing what a profound event that something that simple could be. And it always really was, always really was nothing to be afraid of. And there always really was challenging events in life. The Buddha had challenging times. Do you know? Jesus certainly had challenging times. Do you know? That's why I say
the ultimate challenge.
So I say to some people, what if you had foreknowledge and you knew that with a snap of a finger you could be totally enlightened, whatever your idea of totally enlightened was, but you could get that. You could be totally enlightened, but you had to live the life of Jesus. You know, with the nailing of the cross and, you know, a bunch of followers that leave you at the critical moments, nobody really ever understanding anything you have to say, right up to the very end. Do you know? And do you know what I mean? So that's why I think, like, our ideas of sort of where spirituality leads, I think we get divested, hopefully, of those views along the way. That maybe it's not that. Maybe the whole liberation, transcendent thing is for something. Maybe life had a totally different agenda than we, in our separate fear, had. Maybe it wasn't running away from everything. Maybe it was actually running towards everything. Do you know?
Now, I want to get personal for a moment, Ajahn.
Oh, lovely.
Because, yeah, you know me. Because you mentioned the courage that this part of the journey takes. And I'd like to know in your own life what perhaps some crossroads of courage have been that have called that forth in you.
Yeah. I think the one that's the most glaring, the one that really stood out was for some years, actually, I'm not experiencing it now, which is wonderful, but I went through a good 4 or 5 year period of having some really difficult physical stuff go on, really difficult, and it dealt with a lot of pain, and I mean like pain, like you can't get in the car. So my wife Mukti calls an ambulance, and they have to come get me because I can't walk to the car, and they put me in there, and I'm in a waiting room, and I'm eventually down literally in a fetal position on the floor in the waiting room because I can't sit in a chair. My body's going into shock. It's just shaking. And it reduces everything, it reduced everything down to something very primordial. I mean, every shred of pretense disappears in a moment like that. You know, that you're just there with that. And that's it. And that is a very humbling experience to really experience something that's that, in a certain sense, overwhelming, do you know? And at that moment, if it gets intense enough, all of your approaches, they go. If it's like 90% of the pain you can handle, you can still use your approaches. 95, now you're getting closer to they become harder to utilize. Like 100%, they're out the window and you're on the floor and you're just shaking. You know? And that's just what it is. And what going through like that experience brought me, number one, it brought me, I don't even now, I don't look back and feel like I was sort of distant from, human beings and what we go through. But having gone through that, it's brought me really, really close in a way that I don't think you get that close without experiencing some sort of trial like that, where you get really, really, there's a bond with a part of the human condition that you've been there, you've been there, and it leads to a deeper sense of compassion, and a deeper sense, like I said, a deeper sense of humility, and one would think that it could leave sort of some residue of some sort of fear or whatever, knowing, that you can end up like that. But for me, what it left me with was I really, really loved where it brought me. I loved how it brought me even deeper into the a part of human experience. It brought me deeper into that I have a sort of a brotherhood or a sisterhood with some things that people have experienced that I didn't before. And that's a profound thing, when any of us go through something and we know, it's not like, I don't want to compare it to warriors or something, but it's a little bit like, people coming home from battle, and it's like, no, you don't understand it unless you were there. So they tell us, and so it was humbling, but what it left me with is this extraordinary, it hasn't diminished at all. It's gotten more and more as the years have gone by, this extraordinary appreciation for life.
So, not to be too dense here, but to ask this question, what was the courage in that? I mean, I get the pain, and I get how it transformed you. Mm-hmm. All of your techniques, if you had any, but the capacity you have to surrender, to let go, to breathe, to bring mindfulness to it, all of those reached a point where they didn't work. So what was the courageous act?
Yes. That was the courage. You're shaking on the floor. It's completely overwhelming your whole nervous system. Everything's chaotically, physically out of control. You're experiencing something that your system cannot deal with biologically, and finding the yes. And I don't mean like yes like whoopee. I don't mean yes in any big sense, but I mean just a yes, I'm here, and yes, I will meet this experience. Yes, I will be here, and I will show up. No matter what it is, overwhelming as it is, I will be here. I will not try to be there. And it's nice at that point. It's not nice, but you know that there isn't an over there. So you're stuck with it. But even if you're stuck with something, you can still be very much living in the no. Mm-hmm. No. And what I found is yes. Yes, it is this way. Yes, it's overwhelming. Yes, the whole system's going into shock. Yes, that's right. That's what's happening. Yes. And not backing away, because there is no backing away. But that to me, that was what I mean by, it's courage, but I think to say it would be courage, or I was courageous, would be to give me too much credit. I had to be. There's no other option. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? That's the humbling part. It's not a male, I'll be courageous, I'll meet this, because all that breaks down if it gets tough enough. It all just, it's different than that.
Now you've heard me talk here about the heart's unfolding, this image of the lotus unfolding at the heart, and you know that this is my current deep interest and exploration. What does it mean? And I'm curious what you think about that. What do you think helps people awaken to their heart's unfolding? I mean, you've given us a hint at that in telling this story about saying yes to whatever's happening. But what else?
Oh, I think on an even more gritty note or realistic note, to me what opens the heart is there has to be absolute honesty. And absolute honesty is what opens the heart. Now, all the ways we close our heart are some ways where we don't want to experience something. We don't want to be there, or we don't want to even tell ourselves, much less anybody else, how frightened we are, how resistant we are, how deeply into some state of anxiety or whatever it is. We don't want to confess it even to ourselves. So we're not being honest. We're hiding. We're barricading. We're not. I think this sort of gritty, very gritty, real honesty. It's almost like, I think of it almost like the honesty that someone that abuses a substance comes to when they bottom out. At that moment, bottoming out just doesn't mean you're suffering a lot. It means you've hit a point of honesty. You see yourself in an absolutely clear reflection. And finally, all of the facades have been ripped away. And only then can something begin. And I think something akin to that, not that people have to bottom out, I don't necessarily believe that they do, but something akin to that kind of self-honesty is very important to me about the heart opening. I know that's a different context than we usually talk about it, but I think it's part of what's really, really, really important, because whenever we, even if we say open our heart in this very sort of personal way, if we were to have an intimate conversation and you or I was to share something that was maybe difficult or whatever, we would have to be willing to be absolutely honest, absolutely real. Whatever pretense or image of ourselves we held, we'd have to be able to put it aside so that we could actually enter into what's real. And I think that's a really important part of the heart. And another aspect, I think, of the open heart is, there's a part of love there's a lot of love I think we've lost in our modern world. Even the Greeks had at least three or four well-known words for love. Totally different aspects, from big universal love to friendship love to the eros, the kind of love that just sweeps you away, and you're kind of very prone to delusion. I think most of us know that kind of love as well. There's all these varieties of love, and depending how we're hooked up, we'll have different resistances of a certain kind. Someone who's control-oriented, they'll be afraid of being swept away, of losing their equilibrium. And, somebody that's self-centered, totally self-centered, will be hesitant to open up to agape, something that's universal, that's spread to all humankind, while having our own journey. Maybe the best way I can say this to be less abstract, because I know you like real, actual, personal information.
Yeah, I do.
When I was going through this sort of heart-opening phase, and I went through this in my sort of mid to late 20s, it was after actually a big shift, identity shift. But I was finding it really hard to connect in the Buddhist tradition that I was in with the heart. I couldn't find it. It wasn't that it wasn't there, it just that I couldn't find it in a way that I could utilize, that spoke to me. And so I found myself this sort of committed Buddhist, at the time, wandering through the bookstore shelves, and I kept ending up in the mystical Christian sections. And I would, it's like sneaking peeks at, And the strangest thing happened in that. And this was all I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know why I was doing it. I was just doing it, And I literally, I fell in love in a completely uncontrollable way. Like a adolescent in their first high school love affair. I fell in love with this saint from 200 years ago. And Saint Teresa of Lisieux, the little flower. And I literally had this roaring love affair internally. And it was really rich, and it was warm, and it was yummy, and most importantly, to sort of a good Buddhist, it was out of control. Right? It was out of control. I was out of control. I was doing this silly thing, how you fall in love with a 200-year-old saint, like real love, not just devotion. It's more like, can I take you out? But it really opened me. It opened the heart. I had to intuitively find that avenue. And the interesting thing was, once it opened the heart really big and really vast, then that particular love affair fell away, just disappeared. And then to the point that years later I'll go back and I'll read it and I'll kind of like, there's lots of it I just can't connect with. I was like, what was I thinking? And not that I see anything wrong with her. She's a beautiful being. But she was obviously reflecting something in me that I hadn't found. You know, something in me. And so to me, that really started a heart opening that was very, very profound. And it just continued from there.
But it's interesting to me that happened, that love affair through a book, happened after you said this big shift in identity had already occurred to quite a large degree.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like I said, the first shift isn't the end of the line.
Do you think it would be possible if you were to paint for us in broad brushstrokes your sense of, quote-unquote, the stages of the path?
Of the path?
Of awakening. Your sense, from your experience.
Do you really want that?
I'm kind of curious. Your sense.
Okay.
If you painted it in just big, broad brushstrokes.
Okay. Sure.
I'd use big, Zen calligraphy thing here.
Okay. Well, I've already mentioned some of it. Is the essential, I think, certainly initially the initial component of that sudden shift of how we see ourselves, how we perceive ourselves, and most importantly, how we experience our being. It's as if we thought we were a particular human being and we wake up as a presence. And that's something totally different. And that becomes its own identity. Now that's what I am. And of course, when that happens, a lot of times people think that that's some sort of end of the line. It's, as my teacher used to say, when you have a real legitimate awakening, you just got your foot in the door of reality. You've jammed it in the door. But you haven't, you probably haven't gotten in the room very much and the lights aren't on. But you do got your foot in the door, and that is significant. That is a shift. So from that point, from myself, which reflected in a lot of the people that I've worked with, then a lot of people go through sort of a honeymoon phase, where everything's just flow and beauty and simplicity, and, it's all just happening spontaneously. And then, most people, you come home from your honeymoon, and when you come home from your honeymoon, there's the self that you woke up from waiting for you. Right? Now, it may now be a self that's basically hollowed out of identity, but nonetheless, for most people, there's usually still a lot of stuff going on inside of there that you rocketed past. And as much as you'd like to stay way out there in outer space, it's pulling you back. And so it pulls you back, and then then you have to start to encounter that. And that can be, depending on how much resistance you have, easy, difficult or easy, terrible or wonderful. Combination of all, usually. And then there becomes that starts to be resolved, a lot of that starts to be resolved. There starts to be it's almost like the calm after a storm. It's not the kind of awakening that's often at the beginning, which is sort of big, explosive, revelatory. It's just like all is calm. It's like in the center of your being, and even in your humanness, there's this calmness, there's a settledness. You are now not just transcending your own flesh and bones, you're now becoming comfortable in your own flesh and bones. They're becoming familiar. They're becoming comfortable. You're willing to be there, and you're willing to be that. And you stop seeing your humanity or your humanness and your whatever you call it, your presence, as two things, because they're not. You start to see they're one thing. And then often that'll go on for most people for some years. Sometimes the struggle will go on for years and years and years. And then the calm goes on for some years. And your life starts to then transition during that calm. It starts to transition, and it stops being about you, and it starts to be about exercising or being what you've really realized. Now, early on, there's a struggle to do that right after realization or shortly after, but this is different. Now life becomes about, that's what it becomes about. That's where life and the rough and tumbleness of human existence is really useful to the person, because they need those challenges. They need to bump up against things because, number one, it provides the necessary contrast to the absolute okayness within themselves. So it provides contrast. And that okayness, it needs to be exercised. There comes a point when it's time to come out of the cave, come out of the retreat, come out, and you just start to realize it's time to exercise this. What does it mean for this to, as one old Zen master said, he said, it's not doing nothing, it's doing nothing. You know, and there's a part of the path where doing, bringing that into existence is very much a part of it. Mm-hmm. And then, at least for me, then a whole other movement happened that was, I've just started in the last year or so to really speak about it much, because when I used to 10 years ago, nobody wanted to hear about it, and so I stopped.
We want to hear.
But it is, the only way I've found a language yet, which I'm still not happy with the language, is really the falling away of self. Now, everything I describe sounds like the falling away of self. And it's like the falling away of all the interior of the self. But then you're left with this totally transparent, it's almost like a totally transparent, hollowed out shell. And you cannot even notice that it's there. And what it is at that point, what self becomes at that point, what self is experienced as at that point, is the movement of it. Actually, what it becomes is what it started out to be in the very beginning. Because in the very beginning, around a year to year and a half old, we develop, in our natural development, we develop this capacity to recognize ourselves. A child looks in the mirror and they know that's me. At 6 months old, they don't know who the hell's in the mirror. There's no differentiation. The question of what it is isn't even there. But then, me, right? And if those of you who've had children or seen children when they discover, this is a great discovery for them. It's a real giggle fest. Do you know? Wow, me, wow. And what's really happening is consciousness is turning, it's making this arc, and now it's able to reflect back on itself and go, oh, me. And this is what I'm seeing in the mirror when I look in it. So that's self in its most rudimentary form. And certainly my experience was when self got completely hollowed out and transparent to the point that I didn't even think it was there, then I started to experience that this self, that arc, that way the consciousness moves and refers back, it started to inextricably stop. It started to turn around and not. And the closest I can come to it, which doesn't make it sound appealing or wantable, because it's not wantable, actually.
We'll publish a book on it anyway, don't worry.
You can't desire it.
Yeah.
You can only desire what you think you might get out of it, but is that you completely lose, you absolutely lose your whole inner life. Because the inner life depends on that arc of consciousness.
Now you've gotten into some deep water, man.
You asked.
Yeah, I did.
You asked.
I guess I'm not sure I'm following you there. I don't know if you can make it clearer for me what that means.
It's tough because it sounds like, when I describe it, it sounds sort of like a regress state, like you go back to before you were a year old and you can't look inside and you can't recognize yourself in the mirror. That's the part of it that's where language gets very, very sort of difficult. I think if we just forgot about this the arc of consciousness thing and we kind of got back, maybe it's easier to describe as there's just nothing to reflect upon. There's just nothing there. And I don't mean that in a hip, non-dual, silly way that I think sometimes it's portrayed. I just mean that you live then in the world of as-isness. So you get home and someone goes, "How was the conference, Adya?" And in truth, there's absolutely nothing in me that could, if I was to be absolutely honest, which most people don't want me to be, because it doesn't lead to interesting conversation. But if they said, "How was the conference?" I would just say the conference was. What was your experience of the conference? It was the experience that the conference was.
This is going to make our conversations really short.
That's what I mean. I mean, you kind of become rather, boring for cocktail conversation. However, it doesn't mean that you don't experience joy or happiness.
Hello? I told you. Anything in that office that was thoroughly explained. Oh, it was really quiet. Oh, I heard you. I went back to sleep, Jim. Yeah. Oh, good.
How are you feeling today?
Oh, first of all, let me explain this to you once. When I first wake up, you don't ask me that.
Okay.
Because I'm not here yet. I don't even have enough of anything to tell you anything.
Okay. All right, sorry.
Takes a while.
Sorry about the door.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm going to find a key for you today.
Oh, that would be cool.
I'm going to keep that one for a while.
Sorry.
It's all right. Shit happens. Remember that.
Well, I called you this morning. 11.
If you understand that shit happens and will always happen, and there's no point in crying about spilled milk because it's a done deal, then you can deal with just about anything. Just accept it. You don't have to be happy about it, but just accept it. But when I come down, I'm going to have some coffee.
Yeah.
Through ritual, mental judgment, and emotional contraction, you have a personalized, reactive relationship to people and events in your life. These are all forms of self-created suffering, but are not recognized as such, because to the ego they are satisfying. The ego enhances itself through reactivity and conflict. How simple life would be without those tools. It is waiting. He did not call. I was there. She was not.
Yeah, we need to be downing.
When you are suffering, when you are unhappy, stay totally in what is now. Unhappiness or problems cannot survive.
Find out.
I have no idea.
On the bathrobe.
I don't know. It was at the house in Harpswell, and they packed it up when they packed up the rest of the things. That's all I know.
Where's the bill?
Right here.
So I asked the abbot, when we see your prayers on the outside, what's happening on the inside? And his answer was this. He said, you've never seen our prayers, because a prayer cannot be seen. He said, what you see are the things that we do to create the feeling in our body. So I asked the abbot, when we see your prayers on the outside, what's happening on the inside? And his answer was this. He said, you've never seen our prayers, because a prayer cannot be seen. He said, what you see are the things that we do to create the feeling in our body. The feeling is the prayer. The feeling is the prayer. He's telling us right here. He's telling us in a Tibetan monastery 17,000 feet above sea level in the Himalayan mountains, this man is telling us the secret that was lost in our Christian and Jewish traditions when the edits were taken in from the books. And they practice and they live this. Feeling is the prayer. Then he turned the question around and asked me, he said, how do you do this in your culture? And this is what happened. When we lost the texts, when we lost the words in our biblical texts that tell us that feeling is the prayer, we began to believe that the words are the prayer. That if we say the right words, the right time of day, or the right number of times, that somehow magically a prayer will happen. And when our prayer is not answered, we become frustrated and we think prayer doesn't work. The words are not the prayers. The feeling is the prayer. You're going to see this 3 times this afternoon. The feeling is the prayer. So this is what the abbot shared with us.
Greg Brayton, B-R-A-D-O-N. If you would like to sample more of Greg's work, check out YouTube. Greg, G-R-E-G, Brayton, B-R-A-D-O-N.
The world is like a ride at an amusement park. And when you choose to go on it, it's real, because that's how powerful our minds are. The ride goes up and down, round and round. It has thrills and chills, and it's very brightly colored, and it's very loud. And it's fun for a while. Some people have been on the ride for a long time. They begin to question, is this real or is this just a ride? And other people have remembered. They come back to us. They say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, remember, because it's just a ride. And we kill those people. Shut him up. We have a lot invested in this ride. Shut him up. Get my furrows of worry. Look at my big bank account. Look at my family. This is happening. Right. Well, let's kill those good guys who try and tell us that. You ever notice that? And let the demons run amok? But it doesn't matter because it's just a ride. We can change things however we want. It's only a choice. No effort, no work, no job, no savings of money. A choice right now between fear and love. The eyes of fear, once you put bigger locks on your door, buy guns, close yourself off. The eyes of love, instead, see all of us as one. Here's what we can do to change the world right now.
We can meditate. That's what we can do. We can wake up. That's what we can do. We can forgive ourselves. That's what we can do. We can see that we are creating a fiction. Our imagination is very, very powerful. And as far as disease goes, look no further than all around you. Look inside. Disease. Dis-ease. Isn't there peace somewhere? There must be somewhere. You would think there would have to be. There seems to be some folks that have discovered that. They don't run around telling everybody, oh, look, I found something. A lot of times they're just ordinary people, or look ordinary, doing ordinary things. Maybe pushing a broom. Be entertaining angels unaware. Maybe a bum. There is nothing in this world that is wanted anymore. And yet, they're all around us. But we don't notice them. Because they look like you and me. They don't go around advertising. Funny thing. Or is it? Data from the Bible. It's not religious. It's data. We give our power away to people because we hear that it's sold 3 million copies, a new book. And it's a good book. It's about self-help programs. How to become a better person. Persona. Root word. Persona. From person. Trace it back to the Greek theater. Persona. Mask. So buy the book that says how to become a better person. You're buying a book that essentially says how to become a better fake. What? One persona, one facade for the banker, one for your doctor, one for your minister, one for your mother, one for your father. All fake. But we don't want to see that. Do we? How honest do you want to get with yourself? Stop comparing yourself with anybody and anything in the world. It's between you and the Creator. And you have a concept of a Creator? Look at the word, con. Looking at a con, you're conning yourself. That's why honesty is absolutely imperative to wake up. Because until you get honest with yourself, you can't be honest with anybody else. Think about it. Here's an excerpt from Mooji, M-O-O-J-I, from Mooji.org.
Other people may say to you, you're a bit spaced out, or whatever. You start to believe too much what they're saying, rather than really putting the attention inside and checking in and say, but I feel perfectly fine. Other people may say to you, you look a bit spaced out, or whatever. You start to believe too much what they're saying, rather than really putting the attention inside and checking in and say, but I feel perfectly fine. See, not judging yourself by the projections of other people. See, it is fine. Because they are never going to understand what you're experiencing. No matter how much you try, and I will not even try, unless something motivates to correspond with them. You see, you're just not going to, they're not going to understand until that taste is inside them themselves. And also, don't try to demonstrate your spirituality. Also, keep it your secret. No, but then you find that it is possible to be in both worlds. You can speak to people normally. You don't have to be spiritual to speak with them. But something will be moving through your conversations and your contact. Something will change, especially if they don't see that you're trying to do something. But you only speak from your truth, from your way. And initially,
you look very
although
regal in
there's
that
greater
death
peace, even in your face, in your countenance,
I'm glad it's comfy.
the mind, which is still immersed in conditioning, doesn't see that at first. It sees more direct.
I think Downey would
And you're not the one I have in here of you. You're not matching up to my picture of you. So something is wrong with you. You see, you have to be strong. And you're growing strong, just by staying still. There comes a point when even if the whole world together came with one voice and looked at you and went, no. You feel, okay. It's okay. I still have, I can't convey, it's not my job to show you who I am. It's okay.
A cigarette?
Sure, I'll take a cigarette.
Otherwise, you're only living for the eyes of other beings who are rarely perceiving things as they are. It's like you're in this world, but you don't belong to it in quite the same way.
What the fuck? Looks like it got hung up. See that little thing twirling around? That means it's hung up. When I used to have this on 24/7 for years, couldn't cover it because I was sleeping. And the thing would get hung up like that. Wasn't anybody around to fix it. And I'd come back and it would be all fucked up.
This is all you. You're here. You're not dismissing it. You're moving wisely through it. vanish. They lived on in this body, in truth, and moved with other beings, and spoke with love and compassion and so on. And there's such a tremendous wisdom that guides your way. You don't have to prepare, research who you're going to speak with, because it's not coming from the mind. Intuitively, something moves and is expressing your evil.
Yeah, now, one of the things about the ministry is that I've since realized that the project, started off, and I was told, this is the story, that when the universe disappeared on me, I was totally blown away. I died. The ego died. I came back. I didn't know what the hell was going, what had happened. I just knew everything was different. And since that time, I've been informed of what happened by the people that it's happened to. I didn't know that there was another single human being in the world that it had happened to. Totally ignorant. Since that time, it's been shown to me of what happened. I didn't have the words. There were no words that I could use to describe what had happened to me. Because it would be like seeing a UFO and being abducted and coming back. And if you're smart, you don't fucking say anything. You don't say, oh, I got abducted by a UFO last night. And this is what they did. Even though you're all freaked out, because some of them are very freaked out, you don't go around blabbing that. Because, you have data that remembers that human beings are very skeptical, they're very opinionated, they're very judgmental, they're very whatever. Now, if you do tell people about the fact you had a UFO encounter, you're absolutely convinced that you had the encounter. But they're going to look at you, psychiatrists, media, or whatever else. They have their own agendas, what they want to do. So what you do is you just shut the fuck up. Transition to the old story about the guy, about the community that was what he grew up in, which was inside of a cave. And in the cave, it was all dark, except for some green moss that grew on the inside of the cave. And of course, like any community, it had been reported at one time that there was a world, there was a whole different world of strange things that were part of that world and everything. And so this child that grew up in this community, he wasn't normal. He just wanted to know if that was all true. He was so curious. And finally got to a certain age where he couldn't take it anymore. He said, I'd rather die than live the rest of my life in this community. It's not good enough. I want to know if the stories and the ancient teachings and the stuff is true. So, since the cave was, there, just so happens that water ran through it. It was a stream of water. And in the myth, in the stories, there were people that had left the cave to go and seek what was beyond it. But nobody ever returned. Nobody. It was almost sure death. He said, I'd rather die than live here. I'm going to go and find out what the fuck is out there. So he started his journey, and the community, after he'd gone, wondered where he went and all that, and they were talking. They didn't see him. They didn't see him. Months passed. Years passed. Meanwhile, on his journey, he encountered water, floods. He had to swim underneath a certain part of the river. It's like almost fucking died several times. Oh, it was horrible. There was times that he wished he had never set out on that journey because there was so much suffering he went through. But one day, several days later, his eyes started to burn. His eyes detected something that it never detected before. didn't know what it was. He was kind of freaked out. But as it turned out to be sunlight.
Ah.
And he discovered the world that had been talked about for generations. And he went out there, and it was fantastic. There was fruit, and there was trees, and butterflies, and animals, and the sky, and everything. He was like so happy. And he found other human beings. And this was at a time when the earth, they got along with each other. Now he's so happy. But he was a strange guy, because even though he had made it, was living his life in paradise when the earth was in paradise, he decided to go back because he thought the people, his community, many of them he had developed good relationships with, and he loved them. So he made the ultimate sacrifice. He said, I have everything I need. I have found, quote unquote, the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven, the vortex. But I will go back and I will share this, knowing full well that I am sacrificing what I have found to go back. Even though it might kill me, I'm going to go back and I'm going to share it with all these people I love. And he shows up years later. Took him that long. He shows up and everybody in the whole place are freaking out. It's like, oh my God, we thought you were dead. He says, no, I wasn't dead. So he told him about the world that he'd discovered. And they freaked out, and they were so unhappy to hear that, they killed him.
The second how it's going to happen.
Now, here's ending number 2, where buffoonery.
The what?
Buffoonery was invented.
Uh-huh.
He was the original guy that invented buffoonery because he listened to God. He invented a story, which is all it was in the first place, even though he'd had the experience. It could only be conveyed to them in the stories that they had already learned, and he found out after they killed him, he came back and did a take 2. He went back and he said, hey, everybody, you wouldn't believe it. I had this story, and he was joking about it, and he was making fun of it, and he was making it into a comedy routine, and he was making it into a story, and he developed a character very similar to Mr. Bridges. Because he had to relate to the way he was brought up and the way he was programmed. And because he knew his people, that they were prejudiced and judgmental and spooky and had superstitions and all these fucking stupid beliefs, that if he didn't say it right, it would have been just like when we were hunting witches in the old days, where they used to burn people at a stake that talked about such things that we talk about today. So he invented buffoonery. He said, come on, kids, I've got a magnificent story to tell you. And he started making up all kinds of shit, and he was one of the greatest storytellers in the world. And then he added stuff like, fuck you, you stupid motherfuckers, you're fucking idiots, all of you. Because he realized at the point that society evolved, that it got to a point that no matter what society, what place, what space, no matter where he was, the program was always going to work the same way. That people are going to fucking believe that they're a people, that they're a body, that they're a brain, that they are a story, and that there's identification with it, and they adhere to each other, and they back each other up, and they, this is what I believe, and this is what I believe, and anybody that doesn't believe the way they believe because they're so involved in being attached to their fucking body in a world full of bodies where everybody identifies with a body and with the belief system, won't buy it. So, that's how the Mr. Bridges came about. Thought that. Did that story make the thought bridge? I hope so.
Well, I thought I'd go to the store.
Not a good thought bridge?
Huh?
Wasn't that a good thought bridge?
That was a good thought bridge.
Yeah.
I've got to get some garbage bags. Some stuff to do cleanup with.
Yeah.
So I could use some money because I can't buy that with my food stamps. And I wondered if there's anything I could pick up for you. You look like you're almost at an English muffin.
Yeah, look at that. Look in the freezer.
Oh, what am I looking for?
You're noticing it's jam-packed full of shit.
Yeah.
Mainly Meals on Wheels.
Yeah.
Now, I don't eat any of that meat except the chicken occasionally. And I don't eat, I eat anything that's like, the shells and stuff. But I do not eat the beef. I don't eat the pork.
No, I wouldn't.
Okay, now some of that stuff the cat wouldn't eat, so
That's always a good indicator.
That gave me a clue. That's why I order burgers from Medora, and generally want the highest quality meat. Okay, instead of some of that yucky stuff, Yeah, well, listen, I'm not really a meat eater. I'm a vegetarian, but I'm not really a vegetarian. I'm not really, it's just what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to walk the fine line between the two ideas with the idea of eating healthy. That's the belief. Now, it doesn't mean I have to believe in it, but I've noticed that there are certain programmed beliefs in my head which I'm subject to and I'm still working on, which has to do with not changing my belief, but working with the ones that have got into my subconscious mind that I had nothing to do with. That was a program given to me by my parents who I loved very much, and because I loved them, they conveyed information, and not all of it was good information, which created these beliefs in my subconscious, and they have a billion-dollar industry based on the idea that if you can go back into the subconscious and pull out what's actually the problem, if you can actually see the illusion of the belief that was handed to you in love, and you accepted that without question that you're subject to these beliefs and don't even understand why it is you are reacting to the beliefs that's causing this shit to appear on your body, because your body is merely it is subject to all these beliefs. So the more beliefs you have that aren't investigated, the more you're fucked. The more your body and everything around you is going to reflect your belief, the way you were programmed and conditioned. And if you don't buy your program and condition and don't realize that you're programmed and conditioned, you're going to be subject to shit all the time, where you never quite feel free of what it is that you would like to be free of. But it requires total self-honesty and inspection of yourself. So rather than working on other people and finding a new belief, it's best to investigate yourself, which means you don't go outside of yourself to get any authority. What you realize is all the authorities that you've ever encountered, like mom and dad, you have all these moms and dads around you all the time that are reflecting their moms and dads, and they're constantly taking on that role to tell you what you should do and what you should feel and how you should go about it. And there's nothing better than human beings who are programmed conditioned, thinking that they know best what somebody else should do, like the monkey who says to the fish that he finds beached on the beach one day, he says, "Oh, you poor thing, let me help you," as he shoves it up in the tree.
Or, it's not like the range of experience of you just start. You live then in the world of as-isness. So you get home and someone goes, "How was the conference, Adya?" And in truth, there's absolutely nothing in me that could, if I was to be absolutely honest, which most people don't want me to be, because it doesn't lead to interesting conversation. But if they said, "How was the conference?" I would just say the conference was. What was your experience of the conference? It was the experience that the conference was.
This is going to make our conversations really short.
That's what I mean. I mean, you kind of become rather, boring for a cocktail conversation. However, it doesn't mean that you don't experience joy or happiness or, it's not like the range of emotion is, well, I was going to say that's not true. It is limited. I was going to say it's not limited, but it is limited because you stop experiencing all those emotions that relate to reflecting on yourself. And that's a lot of, that's a lot.
There's a lot of that.
That's a lot of emotional sort of energy, And so, like I said, did you really want me to, talk
well, you
about
heard
that?
it here first at the Wake Up Festival.
Yeah. It's not something you say to pump up crowds and make them.
No, it's okay. One of the things I love about you is that you speak from your experience.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly refreshing and something I just plain love. That's exactly the place you speak from.
Thank you.
Yeah.
She believed she had misplaced it because she feared she had misplaced it. So we are not for a moment suggesting that someone might have an opinion that they believe is valid. Because she believed she had misplaced it. Because she feared she had misplaced it. So we are not for a moment suggesting that someone might have an opinion that they believe is valid that is different from what we know to be. That happens all around. In other words, to try to convince somebody that what they think is wrong and that what I think is right is really wasted effort. Because their opinion keeps validating. It's a really interesting thing. You're going to like this. Law of attraction keeps proving to them that there is no law of attraction. It's genius.
All there is mystery happening. Mystery comes into a duality, the belief of separation. The symptoms of mystery, the individuals. Individuals are the symptoms of mystery, caught in the duality of a consciousness, living symptomatically of each other through science, through religions, all symptomatic communication. Take away the duality and all there is mystery happening. Throw a non-duality into a duality environment, then you have the seeming separation between mystery and its symptoms. Then you have the symptoms forever symptomatically trying to understand what mystery is without realizing that they are a mystery happening. How crazy.
How sane.
Precisely. And at the same time, but separation happens. The individual comes along. The I am comes along, which is the symptom of itself, but doesn't see it. Believes itself to be different, to be separate from what it is. To believe that it isn't what it is, that it's something else, by going along with all the symptoms that it perceives in this physical form, in this duality. It's just mystery happening. And symptoms believing to know what it is, calling themselves as individuals and I's.
The storytelling and the lie. So to tell the story and it's a lie, and then to have people being born into that lie and then constantly add to that lie as time goes on, as we supposedly know it, even though we're constantly in the now, and it's only our bodies that decrepit and disintegrate over time, that we eventually have to let go of the spirit again. And that's what the light does, isn't it? I mean, again, we've already established that, you know, if you knew everything and you were in the peace of it all, and that the electron is surrounded and surrounded and surrounded, and that causes the humming, which then causes light. So now we've got light, which causes duality, and within that light all is projected, the word, the statue, the law, the suffering, the pain, the religion, the racialism, all of that, and we bear witness to it. This is a living hell, isn't it, really, for the mind? I mean, and seeing the tree of life, maybe we are the leaves, the golden leaves from that tree. But it's not for me to scrunch up another leaf and say it's no good. Because if I do that, then I'm actually denying myself. Because by destroying something that resembles me, is actually destroying myself. But who's actually making the morality? Who's actually writing these words? Who's actually leading us to the point that they're leading us to?
Time, what is this thing? To catch a moment on the wing. Time, what is this thing? To catch a moment on the wing while ploughing through the sands of time. The words of belief, a trick of the mind.
That you would like to be free of, but it requires total self-honesty and inspection of yourself. So rather than working on other people and finding a new belief, it's best to investigate yourself, which means you don't go outside of yourself to get any authority. What you realize is all the authorities that you've ever encountered, like mom and dad, you have all these moms and dads around you all the time that are reflecting their moms and dads, and they're constantly taking on that role to tell you what you should do and what you should feel and how you should go about it. And there's nothing better than human beings who are program conditioned, thinking that they know best what somebody else should do, like the monkey who says to the fish that he finds beached on the beach one day, he says, "Oh, you poor thing, let me help you," as he shoves it up in the tree.
But however, it doesn't mean that you don't experience joy or happiness, or, it's not like the range of emotion is, well, I was going to say that's not true. It is limited. I was going to say it's not limited, but it is limited because you stop experiencing all those emotions that relate to reflecting on yourself. And that's a lot of, that's a lot.
There's a lot of that.
That's a lot of emotional sort of energy, And so, like I said, do you really want me to, talk
Well, you
about
heard
that?
it here first at the Wake Up Festival.
Yeah. It's not something you say to pump up crowds and make them.
No, it's okay. One of the things I love about you is that you speak from your experience.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly refreshing and something I just plain love, that's exactly the place you speak from.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I also want to end up, because what I just said can be taken so many ways, right? Because like anything in life, and it's not just a spiritual thing, it's anything, we can't know something until we've experienced it, can we? No, you can't, I can't. If we haven't been there, done it, we haven't been there, done it. And so lots of different conclusions could get made about what I, just described. But I think it's really important to make clear that one of the things that the nice sort of fringe benefit things of it is that it just frees up. It just completely frees up your humanity. Because you're just not asking yourself anymore all the self-referencing questions. It just frees it up, And what it also does is, whether you like it or not, it gives you this you just cannot bullshit yourself anymore. You just can't do it. You need that thing to deceive yourself, sort of. And so it can sound like somewhat like really abstract and out there, how I don't know how people take it, but it can sound like that, but it's not. That's not the experience. If anything, it's the opposite of out there, And it sort of divinizes is not a word, is it?
It's a word, actually.
It sort of divinizes all of existence. Or you realize that's what it is.
I hope you have enjoyed this Thoughtbridge production presentation. Let me know. Let me know. Let me know. If you care to. Thank you for listening and tuning in. Joel T. Bridges at your service. May you find what you're looking for.